Chapter 1038, The Shadow Ghostly Prison is Boiling. Chapter 1038, The Shadow Ghostly Prison is Boiling. What? Xin Yang is missing. The Windstorm War Department lost 1/3 of its members. Fighting League's headquarters in Shadow Ghostly Prison was situated on a blue life star. Inside the God of War temple in the center of the star, a handsome man was screaming angrily, his face pale with rage. Feng Yang wore a forced smile and just stooped her head without talking. What happened? Feng Han took a deep breath. He calmed down, but his eyes were still as sharp as blades. We went to Lifestar number 9 of Potion and Tool Pavilion to discuss business. Feng Yang explained what she knew about the situation with her head held low. She didn't dare to miss any detail. Feng Han listened quietly. After a while, he said coldly, "You said someone at Third Sky of Incipient God Realm poked his nose in it. If it wasn't a Third Sky of Incipient God Realm expert, Cocker of Dark Shadow Clan wouldn't have been killed instantly, and around 10,000 warriors wouldn't have died without screams," said Feng Yang bitterly. "Cocker was truly dead," frowned Feng Han. "I can confirm that." "Not good. Cocker was Kelder's brother. In Dark Shadow Clan, Kelder has the second sky of Incipient God Realm cultivation base. He would go crazy for sure." Feng Han pondered for a while and then sent an order, "Tell our warriors to be wary of the Dark Shadow members. Once they find something, they must report immediately. Kelder will go out from the hidden base of Dark Shadow Clan. He will raise a bloody storm this time." Feng Yang nodded continually. "Announce to the commander of each department of Fighting League to search for Xin Yang, Fu Wei, and that man. What was his name again? Shi Yang. Yeah. And any information about Shi Yang. Tell them to rifle through every corner at once. If you meet people of Potion and Tool Pavilion, you must ask them. Keep a close connection with Bettina and Jar Duo of Potion and Tool Pavilion to exchange information." "Understood. Anything else?" Feng Han frowned as he saw that Feng Yang didn't hurry to spread his order. He asked impatiently. Feng Yang hesitated for a while and then said, "There's something." "What's that?" Lady Xin Yang and the kid called Shi Yang seemed to know each other before. He must have been one of her old friends. "Old friend? What do you mean?" "They've known each other before they came to Shadow Ghostly Prison." Feng Han was surprised, but he wasn't bothered. "Got it. You go and work on your mission." Feng Yang didn't explain the situation clearer because she wasn't sure what the relationship between Xia Xin Yang and Shi Yang was. If she made a wrong guess, she would provoke Feng Han. If that happened, she didn't know what might happen to her. Eventually, she didn't tell him about her assumption. She just nodded and left. On a moving star, the current chief of the Ghostmark clan Hammer took out the Thunder God Spear, his face bitter and sorrowful. He explained what happened to Great Elder of Potion and Tool Pavilion, Zhuelu. Zhuelu frowned, listening to him. He didn't intervene even once. After Hammer had finished, Zhuelu said sadly, his eyes red. "I didn't take care of Du Lin well enough. I had promised his seniors that I would take care of him and nurture him. I had never thought that." Sigh. "Cocker was dead too," reminded Hammer in a low voice. Zhuelu looked tired. He didn't bother to turn and just pulled his hair. When Du Lin attacked Fu Wei for the first time, a blood shield appeared. "I wonder if it is related to that spear. Is it true that the expert who cultivates death and despair powers Upanishad has come again?" Hammer didn't know the situation, so he just lowered his head without talking. "Cocker died. His brother Kelder will come soon. We're going to give the Dark Shadow Clan an explanation. Also to Du Lin." Zhuelu's eyes got colder as he said resolutely, "Send out all the forces of Ghostmark clan to search for those 3 juniors. I will ask the Satellite Eye to gather the forces in Shadow Ghostly Prison. We must know what had happened back there." Hammer nodded, his vision shifting to the Thunder God Spear. "You will keep the God Spear for now." Zhuelu couldn't help but snort, waving his hand. "Go. I want to prepare. This time, I'm afraid that the Shadow Ghostly Prison will change greatly." Hammer moved immediately. By the edge of the Dark Shadow Ghostly Prison, a group of almost 1,000 battleships was running. Those battleships with splendid flags and banners belonged to Monster Clan and Demon Clan. On their way, the small forces around felt fearful and anxious like mice looking at big cats. They all tried to avoid this group of battleships. Why did the battleships of the Monster Clan and Demon Clan appear in our shadow ghostly prison? These two intimidating forces have never been interested in shadow ghostly prison, right? Perhaps it's related to the recent commotion, isn't it? You mean the earth-shaking change of Potion and Tool Pavilion? And how Dark Shadow Clan's Cocker died? Well, besides those things, what else do you think it might be because of? The Fighting League, Potion and Tool Pavilion, Ghost Mark Clan, and dozens of forces around are working in Shadow Ghostly Prison to search for 3 people. We also received the request to keep an eye out for strangers around here. After all, what happened in Lifestar number 9 of Potion and Tool Pavilion? Dunno. Our master doesn't know it, either. We only know that the strongest forces of Shadow Ghostly Prison seemed to have cracked it all. From several thousand miles away from the battleships of the Monster Clan and Demon Clan, groups of smaller forces in Shadow Ghostly Prison were discussing the buzzing news. I'm afraid that Shadow Ghostly Prison is about to host the most ruthless war. Yeah, it's true. Cocker's dead. When an incipient God Realm expert dies, no one knows how furious the bloody coming storm will be. We have no tools to predict that. Sigh. Shadow Ghostly Prison is a big mess. It's chaotic enough. I don't know how many people will die this time. On a black ink battleship, Blood Devil was sitting like a rock. He frowned, sending a wisp of thought. Not long after that, Barth and GUT of Monster Clan together with Miggy and GU Mo and Ghost Hunter were approaching from the battleships of the Monster Clan. Barth and GUT looked impatient. Right when they arrived, they shouted at Blood Devil. Asking us to come to Shadow Ghostly Prison, aren't you taking this too seriously? You think we have plenty of free time? Blood Devil wore a stern face, talking. Did you know about the commotion in Shadow Ghostly Prison? Barth and GUT nodded. Barth said, even if a third sky of incipient God Realm had slaughtered people, what does it matter to our Monster Clan? Why have you asked us to come here? The only remaining member of my tribe was involved. He's missing, snorted Blood Devil. Is that kid worth our 2 tribes traveling thousands of miles to get here? Blood Devil, you're too bored, aren't you? Yeah, that kid has saved my son. But it's not enough to shake all of our Monster Clan, said Barth agitatedly. The last information I received from him says that Lifestar number 9 of Potion and Tool Pavilion would have an earth-shaking change. It said he would encounter a danger that threatens his life. As of now, his message has come true. Blood Devil took a deep breath and continued, besides, he sent me another crucial information. He said that Agate Star area will undergo a tremendous transformation. It relates to all clans here. He asked me to take it seriously. Agate Star area has always had earth-shaking transformations. What else could it become? GUT frowned. No matter how Agate Star area changes, Monster Clan and Demon Clan will always remain as the strongest of the strongest clans. What should we be afraid of then? It's not like that, Blood Devil shook his head. He meant, our Agate Star area will be invaded by a mighty force. Finally, Barth and GUT discolored. Barth contemplated for a while before talking severely. Could that kid make it up because he was afraid that you wouldn't come to rescue him? Blood Devil glared at him, talking in a low tone. I believe him. If he's the only remaining fella of your tribe, shouldn't you be able to locate him using immortal demon blood? Said GUT, frowning. I've tried. I can't locate him at this moment. I'm sure he's still alive. But his condition should be somehow special. I can't contact him. I can only lock his direction. Blood Devil frowned. We are heading towards his general direction. But it's a large scale. I'm afraid it will not be easy to find him. Never mind. We're here anyway. We will go and rock it with you. Barth shrugged. Throwing a glance to Miggy standing next to him, he thundered. If you don't owe him a favor, why did your father need to travel thousands of miles without a clue like this? You're my father. You should take responsibility for me, Miggy smiled, his smile provoking people to throw him a punch. Standing next to Miggy, Ghost Hunter looked like a savage sharp sword. His aura was cold and calm. He hadn't said anything from the beginning. Gut glanced at him, sighing inwardly. He wasn't here because of Blood Devil or Bath. He was here for Ghost Hunter. After he had heard that the only member of Blood Devil's race was in danger, he hesitated. However, right at that moment, Ghost Hunter suddenly talked that if Gut didn't want to join this, he would hand over the Brutal Dragon token and officially leave the Brutal Dragon tribe. Gut didn't know about the real relationship between Ghost Hunter and Shi Yang. However, after this, he understood it. To Ghost Hunter, Shi Yang was much more important than his Brutal Dragon tribe. In a dark area of Shadow Ghostly Prison, dead stars hovered in that area like sand grains. Dead stars were rare. They didn't have earth and heaven energy or any valuable natural resources. They were desolate and belonged to a group of uninterested planets in the Sea of Stars. They could only be a temporary wharf for war chariots or battleships. That area had dozens of dead stars in various sizes. The small ones were just larger than an asteroid. The big ones were as large as a city of Devil Blood Star. Inside a cold, bleak dead star came the roar of wild beasts. This kind of noise was harsh and brutal, as if someone was under an utterly indescribable pain. Two beautiful shadows stood in a corner of the dead star, sighing worriedly. It has almost been 3 months. He has locked himself inside the dead star and screamed painfully like that. What kind of torture does he have to stand? Fu Wei's eyes were gloomy. She felt bitter inwardly. 3 months ago, Shi Yang built a space passage and brought Xia Xinyang and Fu Wei by crossing the space nodes. They landed on this group of desolate dead stars. He asked them not to contact the Fighting League and Potion and Tool Pavilion before getting inside the planet. Since then, he had to endure some kind of painful torture. He had stayed inside the planet for 3 whole months. From time to time, he screamed and roared wildly as if he had fallen into bedevilment. The previous battle must generate a powerful backlash against him. He's using his unique method to recover. Xia Xinyang looked calm. She sighed, but she actually had a deep regret. When they first arrived in the Endless Sea, when she and Shi Yang fought with warriors of Yin-Yang Hololand, she knew this secret of his. After each battle, he would receive terrible recoil. One time, Shi Yang had asked her to lock herself while he was rolling on the floor to resist some kind of tremendous backlash. It has been more than 100 years and this lousy feature of Shi Yang's power hadn't changed. After he used the power that was much more beyond his real realm, he received such pain. While Fu Wei and Xia Xinyang were talking in a soft tone, the painful screeching that had been echoed for 3 months eventually calmed down. A brutal, evil energy started to fluctuate inside the dead star. Chapter 1039, Accumulating Energy. Chapter 1039, Accumulating Energy. Fu Wei and Xia Xinyang approached the deep hole immediately. They craned their necks to look. After a while, the fluctuating energy from the hole ceased. A figure soared up into the sky. He looked high-spirited as his blood chi was abundant. In his black fighting suit, his lean, muscular body was exposed. His eyes were like diamonds with earth-shaking power. Xia Xinyang exhaled in relief, parting her lips into a smile. "Are you all right?" Fu Wei also looked at him. "Best condition ever," Shi Yang laughed brightly. The battle on Life Star number 9 had taken all the energy in his body to drive a wisp of soul consciousness coming from a deep place in the mysterious galaxy, which had killed Cocker and the Dark Shadow Warriors and overturned the situation. After that, Shi Yang was hurt while immortal demon blood in his body was used up. However, the essence chi of Cocker after he was killed had filled Shi Yang's acupuncture points, making up for the loss that he had suffered. The energy of an incipient God Realm expert was extreme, indeed. If Shi Yang hadn't been about to reach ethereal God Realm, it wouldn't have been just that simple backlash. Perhaps, his acupuncture points would have exploded, leading to a body eruption. After 3 months of strenuous digestion, he had absorbed all the energy generated from Cocker's death, which had expanded his essence chi ancient tree to the upper limit of first sky of ethereal God Realm and also helped him condense almost 1,000 drops of immortal demon blood. Compared to himself 3 months ago, he didn't lose a bit of energy. Quite the contrary, his energy had rocketed to new heights. Unfortunately, He hadn't deciphered the mysteries of the ethereal extent yet. Otherwise, when his realm was more stable, he could have broken through directly to second sky of ethereal god realm. Can you tell us about the ancient Demogon phantom that had appeared out of nowhere? What happened after all? Fu Wei hesitated for a while before she decided to probe. It has been 3 months and this doubt was still lingering in her mind. She could die to know why. She had made a lot of assumptions but none of them could approach the truth. Xia Xinyang understood Shi Yang's situation more than Fu Wei, but still, she didn't know about the phantom of the ancient Demogon. She didn't know what kind of god it was. The inheritance I got has been battling with the god clan for tens of thousands of years. The ancient Demogon that appeared in Lifestar number 9 was controlled by the soul of a precursor of mine. That's how it got such invincible power. Shi Yang pondered for a while, his face stern. Once the Dark Shadow clan knows about my existence, I will become the must-kill target that the god clan won't hesitate to eradicate at any cost. My precursor worried that I would be exposed before I'm strong enough. Thus, he killed Cocker and all of the warriors of the Dark Shadow clan. And he didn't spare your fellows. Xia Xinyang and Fu Wei exchanged looks, their faces bitter. To prevent Shi Yang's identity from being exposed, that man didn't hesitate to kill almost 10,000 warriors. He didn't spare their subordinates, either. Which level of ruthlessness this expert has? However, they couldn't blame Shi Yang. At the moment Cocker came, he had used his power at incipient god realm to take the upper hand. Without the help of that precursor, these 2 women could have been killed, too. They were still alive. They had to thank that mysterious expert. But they couldn't be happy. Precursor Feng Yang has been trying to contact me. Jia Duo also sends Fu Wei messages after several days. We cut them off deliberately. But now, what do you want us to tell them? Xia Xinyang rubbed her porcelain forehead as if she had a headache. The commotion your precursor had caused in Lifestar number 9 was too big. Forces around Shadow Ghostly Prison do have concerns. We have to give them an explanation, anyway. Just tell them that it was a third sky of incipient god realm precursor who has a deep grudge against the Dark Shadow clan. This person suddenly came and massacred people. Shi Yang had a plan, so he told them without any hesitation. Tell them that Precursor found out that Dark Shadow clan and God clan have a conspiracy. They will invade Agate Star area. After he killed Dark Shadow clansmen, he captured us and took us away. He told us the evil plan of Dark Shadow clan and God clan. Oh right, don't forget about Great Elders Walu of Potion and Tool Pavilion. Tell them that Precursor wanted us to inform every force in Agate Star area about this. How about the dead warriors of Potion and Tool Pavilion and Windstorm War Department? Sighed Fu Wei. Simple. Cocker of Dark Shadow clan and Du Lin of Ghost Mark clan had killed them all, Shi Yang said deliberately. Yeah, only that way. Xia Xinyang wore a reluctant complexion. Suddenly, she glared at him angrily. My Windstorm War Department has lost 1/3 of its members. You irritate me. Hearing her mentioning this, Fu Wei felt sorrowful, looking at him with bitterness and regret. Shi Yang felt awkward. He just smiled and said nothing more. Can we contact the others now? Asked Xia Xinyang irritatedly. Yeah, no problem, no problem. Shi Yang forced a smile. Xia Xinyang and Fu Wei immediately took out their sound stones. Shi Yang pondered, then furrowed his brows. He also sat down like the 2 women, closing his eyes. A scarlet drop of blood appeared on his fingertip. Dash. Fighting League. Feng Yang was shouting at the warriors of her Windstorm War Department with a cold face. She was startled all of a sudden, waving her hand to signal the others to stop talking. She took the sound stone from her sleeve, listening attentively. After a while, Feng Yang's eyes brightened. She hurried to go to the God of War temple to meet Hegemon Feng Han. In Lifestar number 9, Bettina and Jia Duo were talking to an expert from the Wood clan. Great Elders Walu had his hysteria, which made Bettina and Jia Duo increase their powers. 3 months ago, they contacted the Wood clan, the force that was close to them, and asked them to send over experts. At this moment, Lifestar number 9 wasn't weak anymore as it had more experts. Jia Duo was shaken as he said, "We got the news. In the dark galaxy by a group of dead stars of Shadow Ghostly Prison, battleships of Demon Clan and Monster Clan were scattering, searching through the dead stars. Atop a battleship sat Blood Devil. His mind flickered when his eyes radiated strange light. He smiled, yelling, "Found him." Battleships of Monster Clan and Demon Clan gathered quickly, heading in a fixed generation. On a meteorite by Shadow Ghostly Prison, Fei Lan, Leona, Ka Tuor, Benny, Zhuo and Xian Ming were sitting cross-legged, their eyes gloomy. It has been 3 months since the earth-shaking commotion in Lifestar number 9 had happened. Even the wandering visitors like them got the news. They were so worried about Shi Yang. They didn't know whether Shi Yang had survived or not. Ka Tuor suddenly got up, looking here and there. He screamed happily, "Senior calls for us." 7 days later, the Dead Star where Shi Yang, Xia Xinyang, and Fu Wei were staying welcomed the first wave of guests, which was a fleet of almost 1,000 battleships of Monster Clan and Demon Clan. Chuckling, Shi Yang relaxed his tense mind. Looking at the battleships approaching, he suddenly said, "Precursors, thanks for your trouble." The Monster Clan and Demon Clan gathering made Shi Yang feel warm. When he was in danger previously, he had trusted Blood Devil enough to send him a rescue request. He wasn't even sure if Blood Devil could receive his message or not. Shi Yang thought that even if Blood Devil had received his message, he wouldn't have mobilized a lot of people. At most, he would send some demon experts to check his situation. When he could confirm Shi Yang's situation, he would send his big army. However, it was beyond his imagination. Not only Blood Devil coming personally, but he also brought Bath and Gut of the Monster Clan. He had brought the strongest forces of Monster Clan and Demon Clan, combining them into one. It was because Blood Devil trusted him, or he did care about Shi Yang's death or life much. Shi Yang could see the biggest favor was that lonely member of the immortal Demon Clan had for him. Looking at the coming battleships and Blood Devil storming and landing, Shi Yang was touched as he said, "I couldn't believe you came here yourself. And you, bring your experts together with the Monster Clan." Blood Devil laughed heroically. "Bath and Gut were quite discontented with me on our way here. Boy, help me explain to them. Or else, they would think I'm just acting unreasonably." In the loud laughter, Bath and Gut appeared. Following them were Migi, Jiu Mo, and Ghost Hunter. Their energy rolled powerfully, showing off the Monster Clan's might. What happened after all that? Bath frowned. He was wearing a complexion that wasn't so friendly. "Kid, you sent a message and Blood Devil wanted a war. He had almost disordered the Monster Clan and Demon Clan. He forced us to send out our troops. We came to Shadow Ghostly Prison from our place. This route isn't short. Did you tell the truth about the danger coming to Agate Star area? Do you know about the God Clan?" Shi Yang's face was stern, hissing. Blood Devil, Bath, and Gut exchanged looks. They nodded with a heavy visage. Recently, the number of members of the other clans who have come to Agate Star area have reached the figure of several hundred. It was no exception that those people have come to Agate Star area because their homelands have been invaded. Gut nodded and continued, "From what they told us, the God Clan is an extremely intimidating force in this universe. Their fighting competence is said to be the strongest in this vast space. They are too invasive. They have always been working on expanding their territory. This clan has invaded many galaxies." Shi Yang took a deep breath and said simply, "They've laid their eyes on Agate Star area." Everybody was shocked. "The God Clan is about to invade us." Bath changed his visage, his voice low and harsh. "Almost," Shi Yang nodded, explaining seriously. "The Shadow Ghostly Prison here will be the entrance. Dark Shadow Clan is the watchdog of the God Clan. It's in charge of pioneering and cleaning the space barrier that stands between the 2-star areas. I'm sure that Great Elder of Potion and Tool Pavilion, Zhuo, has sealed a treaty with God Clan. He will use the internal competition of Potion and Tool Pavilion to put Agate Star area into chaos, which will be the pavement for God Clan to come here later." After he finished, the experts of the Monster Clan and Demon Clan couldn't stay calm anymore. They all knew about the power of the God Clan through the refugees from different galaxies who came to find shelter in Agate Star area. At the same time, Potion and Tool Pavilion was a super powerful force in Agate Star area. Great Elders Wu Lu controlled 1/3 of the power of Potion and Tool Pavilion. Being an ally with God Clan and Dark Shadow Clan would bring Agate Star area a destructive transformation. God Clan is much stronger than what you think, Shiyang sighed. They have more than 100 incipient God Realm experts. Each of the 12 great families of the God Clan is able to rule an entire star area. In this vast sea of stars, God Clan has claimed almost half of the stars. If they lay their eyes on Agate Star area, they would stir up this sea of star severely. Great but deadly commotion would happen. Listening to his description of the God Clan's might, people took in a cold breath, their eyes frightened. Chapter 1040, Allied Forces. Chapter 1040, Allied Forces. On the Dead Star, Shiyang talked to Blood Devil, Bath, Gut, and the experts of the Monster Clan and Demon Clan about the powerful forces of the God Clan. Several days later, Fei Lan, Ka Tuor, and the others arrived on the Dead Star. After a while, Feng Yang of Windstorm War Department came with dozens of battleships. She wanted to bring Xia Xinyang back to the Fighting League, but she denied. They met up on the Dead Star, discussing something discreetly while looking stern. This Dead Star wasn't significant. It merely bore the number of the Monster Clans and Demon Clans battleships. When the Windstorm War Department arrived, they could only stay on a Dead Star nearby. Several days later, Jia Duo of the Potion and Tool Pavilion brought hundreds of guards. They wanted to take Fu Wei back to the Life Star number 9. When Jia Duo arrived, he looked at the battleships of the Monster Clan and Demon Clan with a different complexion. Fu Wei and Shiyang came to greet him. As Jia Duo met Shiyang this time, he couldn't be natural. Anyway, he didn't wear his previously arrogant face. Through the fantasy mirror, he could see some clues, more or less. He knew that Shiyang wasn't ordinary. Although his realm wasn't profound, when he used all of his force, the destructive power he could generate was earth-shaking. Before Shiyang had reached the peak of original God realm, he had taken action in rage, which had almost killed Jia Duo. If Xia Xinyang hadn't interfered, he would have been killed. With that experience, Jia Duo didn't dare to look down on Shiyang anymore. This time, he was more cautious, as he was afraid of provoking Shiyang. Third Elder wants you to come back. Jia Duo looked at the battleships parking from a distance, lowering his voice. Third Elder minds that thing a lot. She wants to ask you directly. Currently, Shadow Ghostly Prison has a lot of rumors. The other parties in our Potion and Tool Pavilion have also noticed this area. I can't return to the Life Star number 9. Fu Wei shook her head determinedly. Taking a deep breath, she looked at Shiyang next to her, talking. You're here in time. We can go and confirm it together. What do you mean? Jia Duo was surprised. The God Clan's invasion, Fu Wei said slowly but sternly. We're done discussing. I will go with the Monster Clan, Demon Clan, and Fighting League to the space canal that connects to the God Star area. I heard that the Dark Shadow Clan is working in there. We will check the situation first, then we will decide the internal matters of the Potion and Tool Pavilion. Jia Duo was shaken, talking earnestly. Is it true? It's your Potion and Tool Pavilion's responsibility. Standing by them, Shiyang's face was cold. If it weren't because of your great elders Wu Lu, the Dark Shadow Clan wouldn't have been facilitated to clear the passage that fast. If we can't do anything, your great elder will be safe when the great army of the God Clan comes. But, you guys don't have a good relationship, so you wouldn't be able to dodge this Kalpa. Dark Shadow Clan and God Clan will definitely help Wu Lu claim the power of the Potion and Tool Pavilion. They will kill all of the opposing parties. Jia Duo's eyes were dark, gazing at Shiyang. However, he didn't say anything. If it were in the past, when Shiyang bluntly talked to him like that, he would redden in rage. However, at this moment, he didn't have such guts. After a long moment, Jia Duo nodded. It's good to check it out. Shiyang said calmly, as you Potion and Tool Pavilion people are here, we've gathered enough forces. We can depart now. Fu Wei smiled tenderly. People of the Monster Clan, Demon Clan and Fighting League have had an agreement in advance. Once we find out that the Dark Shadow clan is actually doing such things, we will join hands and deliver a fatal strike. We must destroy that canal as soon as possible. Jia Duo was shocked. He looked at Shi Yang with strange eyes, sighing. He had just recognized that he had always underestimated Shi Yang. This anonymous kid could promote such a big commotion, which got the Demon Clan, Monster Clan, and even the Fighting League involved. Jia Duo knew that it was impossible for the Potion and Tool Pavilion to stay aside and watch. Potion and Tool Pavilion had to join this operation. Once it was proven, it would affect all forces in this agate star area. Although Jia Duo knew this would give Shi Yang fame and a high profile, he had to follow the man. He wasn't able to pursue his other thoughts. As Blood Devil, Bath, Gut, and Feng Yang were incipient God Realm experts, the famous characters of Agate Star area, although Jia Duo was the 10th Elder of Potion and Tool Pavilion, they didn't really appreciate his presence here. They didn't join the meeting between Jia Duo, Fu Wei, and Shi Yang. After they were done, Feng Yang appeared to talk to Jia Duo. However, Blood Devil, Bath, and Gut had never shown themselves. They just sent Jiu Mo and McGee to visit him. Apparently, the three incipient God Realm experts didn't consider Jia Duo an existence with an equal status. Shadow Ghostly Prison. Thousands of imposing battleships in different shapes divided into 4 fleets that were more like 4 sharp daggers, moving at breakneck speed in the dark space. The battleships of the 4 forces had different flags and banners representing different forces. Sometimes, they passed some small troops of Shadow Ghostly Prison, and others would instinctively move away. They didn't dare to linger in the 4 forces' way to provoke them. Monster Clan, Demon Clan, Fighting League, and Potion and Tool Pavilion were famous for their might in Agate Star area. Today, these 4 intimidating forces gathered and moved in the same direction, which made the others recognize that something big would happen soon. Has the internal war of the Potion and Tool Pavilion started? The Monster Clan and Demon Clan have never operated in Shadow Ghostly Prison. They all come here today for what besides the Potion and Tool Pavilion's competition, you say? Who knows? That commotion has stirred up people everywhere. I heard it's because of a mysterious third sky of incipient God Realm. Would they come for him? It's possible. The Dark Shadow clan's about to change. We don't know how bad it could be. Perhaps you don't know, but the forces of other races in Agate Star area have noticed this area. Oh, yeah, I've seen experts of the Wood clan. So, they are here as well. I saw Hammer of the Ghost Mark clan half a month ago. He's in our Shadow Ghostly Prison as well. Holy *T. What's happened? Why are so many strong forces coming to our Shadow Ghostly Prison? God knows. The same conversation spread through different areas of Shadow Ghostly Prison. People knew something big would happen in this area, but no one knew what it could be. They asked their friends around, but they still had no clue. On a moving planet, Great Elder Zhuelu of the Potion and Tool Pavilion looked worried. The fantasy mirror hovering in front of him showed the image of Kelder from the Dark Shadow clan. Kelder looked even worse than him, with the Ignis Fatuus-like eyes. The gloomy skulls on his waist whined and hissed scarily. We have found them. But, you better not act rashly. Zhuelu's face was cold as he advised the other. Those 3 juniors have gathered with the Monster Clan, Demon Clan, and Fighting League. Although you are at a high realm, you're not the match of this force. I'm still investigating to know what happened back then. You should wait for the result. Kelder looked like he was about to send fire through his eyes as he said through his gritted teeth. It's been 5 years. You're too slow. How long more do you want me to wait for? Give me 2 months more. I must know what had happened there. Zhuelu had a headache. Our pavilion isn't quite peaceful these days. The dying pavilion master has heard about my strange commotion. He's summoning the 3 incipient God Realm experts. It's strenuous for me to settle these things. During this time, I'm begging you to leave me alone. Don't cause more troubles. My brother's dead. My blood brother, Kelder said with a murderous intent on his face. Don't worry. I will investigate to see who did that. Zhuelu was agitated. It's not those 3 juniors. Their highest realm is just the second sky of ethereal god realm. I've heard that it was a third sky of ethereal god realm expert. We don't know about that expert yet. I still need more evidence. In Agate Star area, we can count the experts at the third sky of ethereal god realm with the fingers of our hands. We just need to confirm those experts' whereabouts at that time. If some of them weren't at their place at that time, we would know who did that. I'll give you 2 more months, Kelda said with a dark face. The chief has also given you a deadline. The space passage is about to be cleared. The force that our Dark Shadow clan depends on is about to lose its patience. If the Agate Star area isn't as chaotic as they want when they arrive, things they've promised to you will be nulled. You know how strong they are, right? Listening to him, Zhou Lu was frightened. He nodded, his face paling. I understand. I'll do my best on it. I'm waiting for your good news. Kelda cut off the communication and disappeared from the fantasy mirror. On a battleship made of beast bones, Shi Yang, Blood Devil, Bath, and Gut were gathered, their faces grave. We've created a big commotion. In the next phase, we must conceal ourselves. Otherwise, if other forces see us, they will alarm the Dark Shadow clan as well. Feng Yang frowned. We're heading to an area where Dark Shadow clansmen often visit. It's the key area of their operation. Also, the small forces do have guards staying around. If they spot us, it will be troublesome. Feng Yang was the expert of the Fighting League. As the Fighting League had been fighting against the Dark Shadow clan for years, they understood about this clan's situation better. Blood Devil, Bath, and Gut nodded, showing that they had no different ideas. They continued to listen to Feng Yang. I know a route that leads to that area directly. Feng Yang pondered for a while, her strange eyes fixing on Xia Xinyang as she explained. Xia Xinyang came to Shadow Ghostly Prison through that route. Listening to her, Xia Xinyang changed her face as she had fear in her eyes. She spoke with a slightly hoarse voice. Precursor Feng Yang, it's not easy to get through that route. She looked frightened, as if what she had experienced there was still haunting her. That year, I departed with hundreds of people. However, not more than 10 made it through. Everyone standing there discolored. It's all right, Feng Yang waved her hand as if she wasn't bothered with that idea. We have 4 incipient God Realm experts this time. We have more experts. Getting through that area won't be a problem. As she said that, Xia Xinyang gathered herself together. Looking at Blood Devil, Bath, Gut, and Shi Yang, she said calmly, I had forgotten how strong we are now. Yeah, it shouldn't be a problem. Chapter 1041, Ethereal Extent. Chapter 1041, Ethereal Extent. Ethereal Extent is derived from the Power Upanishad. It's a miniature version of the soul. Ethereal Extent is a fantasy world that the warrior creates with his power Upanishad and energy. The ethereal extent can change unlimitedly under the control of the soul altar. It's not much similar to the soul altar, but it's connected to the soul directly. Ethereal extent can extend forever without any rupture. It can enlarge unceasingly. The experts with the ethereal extent, including Blood Devil, Fei Lan, Xia Xinyang, and Fu Wei, showed Shi Yang their ethereal extent. They told him their own definition of the ethereal extent, which they had experienced. When warriors broke through to the ethereal god realm, the first thing they did was to create the ethereal extent. Without an ethereal extent, their first sky of ethereal god realm wouldn't be complete. And, if only the ethereal extent appeared, the warrior could break through furthermore. If the warrior could create the ethereal extent, when he battled against the other, he could use both the ethereal extent and his power Upanishad to increase his overall competence. Since the warrior could change his ethereal extent as flexibly as he pleased, it provided him with many new ways to use his power. It could be said that warriors at the ethereal god realm must depend on the ethereal extent in fighting. Their god body, energy, and power Upanishad had to connect to the ethereal extent to bring out their best abilities. At this moment, Shi Yang had reached the ethereal god realm, so his priority now was to create his ethereal extent. Inside a secret room with an open ceiling in a battleship, Shi Yang lifted his face to watch the dark sky. He frowned in irritation as he got a feeling that he couldn't walk through the door. To any warrior breaking to the ethereal god realm, creating the ethereal extent was a troublesome issue that he must fulfill. Many warriors had to linger for a long time at this threshold. It could take several years or even a dozen years. Perhaps, they suddenly get a flash of recognition one day, understanding something and breaking this door. Blood Devil and the others gave him different descriptions of the ethereal extent. At the same time, their powers Upanishads weren't similar to his, so they couldn't give him much of a reference. Depending on the different power Upanishads and the races, the ways to create the ethereal extent varied. Usually, even if they cultivated the same power Upanishad, their ethereal extents might not be similar. And, there were so many methods to create the ethereal extent. Only if he could find the way that was suitable for him to evolve his power Upanishad could he build his ethereal extent. Shi Yang cultivated mixed power Upanishads. He had space, life and death, star, and the devouring power Upanishad, the last of which he hadn't understood thoroughly yet. Having many power Upanishads caused a lot of trouble when he wanted to create the ethereal extent. He didn't have a clue where to start. Lifting his head to watch the dark void up there and seeing not even a single beam of starlight, Shi Yang felt a little upset. After an unknown time, he temporarily forgot the trouble of generating an ethereal extent. He calmed down his soul, trying not to think too much as he now focused on the soul altar. His soul altar had 3 tiers, including the sea of consciousness, the tier of power Upanishads, and the host soul. However, today, as his consciousness was wandering, he found something new. There was something with the host soul above the tier of power Upanishads. Holding his breath and concentrating, Shi Yang erased the worries and confusion in his mind. His soul gradually became empty, without any mess of thoughts, as he just sauntered around that area. Consciousness. Emotions. A borderless, hazy area. A chaotic place which looked like a miniature universe before it was developed. It was like a sheet of white paper that had colors added from the ever-changing power Upanishads, thoughts, and energies, to sketch the animated lines and shapes. That area could have different things based on Shi Yang's swift imagination. His consciousness floated, moving around that hazy and chaotic area. He didn't investigate, merely enjoying the magical mysteries in his soul. He felt relaxed and at peace like he had never been. The sea of stars was vastly immense with countless galaxies. Different stars looked like grains of sand in the desert, which could be counted in the billions. He didn't know how vast this universe was. He didn't know how many races had been born, evolved, and gone extinct. He didn't know how many warriors had fallen, returning to nothingness and leaving no trace behind. The borderless sea of stars concealed the most mysterious miracles in this world. There were so many imposing existences from the ancient time, and too many specialties that he could never imagine. Shi Yang sank into the world of his soul and opened his mind to see his little self that was like a tiny dust particle in the outer space. Gradually, his soul flashed, as the tier of power Upanishads was changing silently in his soul consciousness view. At first, he sank into his star power Upanishad to carve the knowledge he had. He imagined himself as a tiny dust particle in this endless sea of stars. He was like a rock, a small, ordinary star which had bobbed for billions of years in this sea of stars from the ancient time. Even though it was small, it had its own way of showing the meaning of its existence. Gradually, he felt a marvelous feeling. He had become part of the immense void, an originally small light dot in the sea of stars, which would then develop into a real star. At the moment this feeling arose, Shi Yang didn't recognize anything. He was still immersed in his soul and star power. He wasn't aware of the change of the vortex in his lower abdomen, which was the fountain of energy of the small star he had. It slowly floated and moved towards his soul altar. It was the star power Upanishad he had cultivated, which was also the source of energy in his body, an immense nebula where a lot of starlight dots were scattered. It had a rigid orb, which was a star nucleus glowing magnificently in the vast galaxy. While his consciousness bobbed, using his soul to explore the universe, the nebula that should be inside the vortex in his lower abdomen had flown out, entering his sea of consciousness, storming into the unknown, chaotic space in his soul. It was like a white sheet of paper being dyed and drawn to make a beautiful yet magical picture. That hazy area suddenly changed as if someone had used a miraculous brush to illustrate a whole new world. The area of primal chaos was empty at first. Gradually, it slowly generated something as if it had a big explosion that unceasingly sent light dots everywhere. That magnificent explosion happened in every corner and lasted for a long, unknown time. Slowly, changes occurred. Starlight appeared like dots at first. Then, a brilliant star enlarged as many smaller pieces of broken stars moved around it. It looked as beautiful as a big diamond moving in a natural trajectory. Everything was working in accordance with the true meaning of the sea of stars and some unknown rules. The hazy, immense area became marvelous with the newly formed galaxy. Gradually, when his soul consciousness moved between the glowing broken stars that looked like fireflies, he saw the space nodes. The biggest star seemed to enlarge in his view, and he could vaguely see things in that area of primal chaos. Slowly, the concept of space was introduced. The miniature version of the immense sea of stars with all the space nodes and the definition of an extending space appeared, which looked more like a small model of the real universe. Shi Yang didn't realize the changes in his soul alter. He also forgot his initial purpose, just immersing and witnessing the birth of a miracle. He felt touched. He was touched on seeing the glamour of space and its changes. Observing the magical energy fluctuation of that gorgeous star, he felt emotional. It seemed he had become the owner of this small universe. He understood the eternal loneliness of the sea of stars, and could feel the reluctance of having not even a single soul in the star. He now could understand the truth that people in this mundane world could never touch. Being half-conscious, Shi Yang suddenly felt that this world lacked something. It didn't have any creatures. It didn't have the evolution of life. It lacked the typical life cycle of birth, aging, sickness, and death. When this thought appeared, his tier of power Upanishads changed again. Life and Death Power Upanishad was activated automatically and it merged with his soul consciousness, becoming an air current that poured into the magical world inside that small sea of stars. Although it was small, it did exist. Slowly, wisps of Shi Yang's soul consciousness were empowered by the stars. He felt like he was the grand angel observing that biggest star. He felt that it was finally alive now. After that, as his thought changed, the power of his blood started to give birth to creatures. A viscous sea that looked like a small sea of consciousness was changing. It took in his soul consciousness to generate lives in an animated world. Those creatures didn't have clear facial features. They all had his aura, as if they were generated by his energy only. They gave him a feeling of seeing flowers in the mirror or the bright moon in water. They were unreal, but their existence couldn't be denied. They existed in his fantasy, but they were so tangible that he couldn't distinguish. Those vague creatures that looked like illusions were born, thriving, and then dying. They seemed to be made of pure energy, which gathered when they were born and scattered when they died, returning to the heaven and earth. Life and death could be seen in that star. He could see things happen at any minute, which would never cease. The sea of stars appeared, space opened, and the illusions of life and death were happening in another universe, which looked like a miniature universe that he had created. And Shi Yang, he had become the sole god of this world. When his thought changed, the star, space, and life cycle would be adjusted accordingly. He could move the star, expand space, and give birth to lives. He could even make lives return to nothingness in just a blink of an eye. In that space, there was nothing he couldn't do. He could turn his imagination into reality as fast as he pleased. However, that reality wasn't real. It was still a fantasy. Everything depended on his consciousness, energy, soul, and power Upanishads. It was just his subjective thought, so it would never possibly manifest in the real world. When he died, all the things he had made up with his thoughts would cease to exist. All the things in that world were real to him, as he could sense and recognize them. He could do anything in that world as it brought him a borderless space to promote his imagination. It couldn't get rid of his control. It was the ethereal world, which they called the ethereal extent. When Shi Yang got this point, his floating soul consciousness understood something. He woke up, returning to the real world. He felt as if he had just moved back and forth like a shuttle in some world. He was baffled when he found a whole new world had appeared in his tier of power Upanishads and his soul. It looked like a miniature universe, with countless stars and an immense space. It was also an ethereal extent, but it was utterly different from the ethereal extents he had seen. Others' ethereal extents were just a space generated by their main power Upanishad, and the mountains, seas, or thunderstorm in there were just the smaller projections of the real objects in the real world. But his ethereal extent seemed to include the whole world. It looked like a brand new world indeed. Chapter 1042, Going Out. Chapter 1042, Going Out. Did you meet the battleships of the Monster Clan and Demon Clan? No, they seem to disappear into thin air. Where are they going? Dunno. Leaders of many small forces in Shadow Ghostly Prison still kept an eye on the commotion of Monster Clan and Demon Clan. However, all of a sudden on one day, this mighty force disappeared. Potion and Tool Pavilion and Fighting League remained silent. They didn't give any comment on this event or contact those small forces to ask them to do chores. Leaders of many small forces were afraid of Demon Clan and Monster Clan. As the two powerful clans were making a big commotion, which most leaders had no information about prior to their arrival, those small forces were afraid of getting involved in this mess. They had to try all means to collect information. However, they got nothing. Today, Lifestar number 9 of Potion and Tool Pavilion received a bony, senile old human with murky eyes. However, when he arrived, the senior managers of Potion and Tool Pavilion including Bettina were shocked. They all came out to greet him. It was an incipient God Realm expert of Potion and Tool Pavilion. Being the super powerful force of Agate Star area, of course, the Potion and Tool Pavilion had its own incipient God Realm experts. They had been secluding to cultivate for entire years. They didn't care about business or any matter of the pavilion. Only when earth-shaking incidents happened to the pavilion would they appear to handle the situation. The three incipient God Realm experts only listened to the pavilion master's orders. The other elders had no authority to assign them tasks or ask them for help. The expert who came here today had second sky of incipient God Realm cultivation base. He was called Timlin, one of the consecrators of Potion and Tool Pavilion. The three incipient God Realm experts were all consecrators of Potion and Tool Pavilion. With the massive storages of earth and heaven natural resources that Potion and Tool Pavilion had collected, the consecrators had the privilege to use them first. The consecrators were also full-time hatchet men, the three sharpest sabers of Potion and Tool Pavilion. Bettina and the other experts of Potion and Tool Pavilion bent their bodies slightly waiting for Timlin to talk. I'm here as ordered by the pavilion master. Timlin squinted, his voice calm and steady. Although Master doesn't have the energy to handle the business of the pavilion, he's still the master before he falls. He knows what you've done. He asked me to come and clarify what had happened. Great Elder has plotted for the cannon. He sent the Ghostmark clan and Dark Shadow clan to attack us. We were almost killed. Bettina briefed the situation. Where's the cannon? Hissed Timlin. Bettina hesitated for a while before talking. Fu Wei keeps it. Where's Fu Wei? Asked Timlin. Bettina kept silent. Timlin's eyes got colder. They're heading to the Dark Shadow clan's territory. Considering her words, Bettina explained. They're suspicious of Great Elder and Dark Shadow clan's cooperation. They thought that Great Elder and Dark Shadow clan wanted to contact the God clan to invade Agate Star area. That's why they are trying to find the truth. What happened in Lifestar number 9? Which force does that third sky of incipient God Realm expert belong to? Timlin continued. I'm not sure. Bettina forced a smile. His realm is profound. According to Fu Wei, he had always stayed in a grey mist that made her unable to see his shape. You can't identify him? What were you doing at that time? Timlin said, a little bit irritated. Hammer was attacking him at that time. I didn't have a free hand to take care of the other area. The God clan is about to invade us. Who said that? A junior called Shiyang. He's the first one to spread this possibility. And now, The Monster Clan and Demon Clan are here. The Fighting League is also watching. We will have the conclusion of the truth soon. If it's true, Agate Star area will receive an earth-destroying disaster. Once you receive any information, inform me immediately. Understood. In a mysterious area of Shadow Ghostly Prison. Many battleships were trembling hard as the experts on the ships were urging their energy to set up the barriers covering the battleships. Fast meteors shot over like bunches of light beams with a terrifying impacting power. They were wreaking havoc in this area. Those meteors were harsh and brutal. While moving at breakneck speed, they barged into space and sent dazzling beams of light into the void. Countless meteors were moving and crossing each other in that area, which created a thick mesh light net. Each of the big meteors was much bigger than the battleships and moving faster in accordance to some unknown rules. The hissing sounds it made when passing by the battleships made people shiver. But the strange thing was that even though there were so many meteors shooting across the place, they had never made an impact with each other. The battleships moving through this place encountered a lot of trouble. Those meteors were like imposing mountains with frightening power. Once it crashed into a battleship, that battleship would be smashed instantly and the warriors on the battleship couldn't avoid the fatal consequence. No one could understand the trajectory of the meteors. They could only use energy to defend themselves. The warriors who were able to deviate those meteors were just some incipient God Realm experts. Warriors at Ethereal God Realm weren't strong enough to do that. The battleships of Monster Clan, Demon Clan, Windstorm War Department and Potion and Tool Pavilion were moving in that dangerous area. Blood Devil, Bath, Gute, and Feng Yang, the 4 incipient God Realm experts, were guarding the 4 directions. They were using their powers Upanishads to protect the battleships from those destructive meteors. Whenever the meteors approached at fast speed, they would run like firefighters and use their supernatural powers to forcefully deviate from it. However, this place had countless meteors weaving into a thick mesh light net. The total number of the battleships of Potion and Tool Pavilion, Windstorm War Department, Monster Clan, and Demon Clan was more than 1,000. Each battleship had the possibility to make contact with the meteor. The 4 incipient God Realm experts couldn't cover them all. There were more than 10 battleships that got smashed because they were late to rescue them. However, as the warriors on those battleships could see the coming lousy situation, they all jumped off the battleships and landed on the other battleships before their ships exploded. It's not a good solution, Jar Duo frowned, his face grimaced. Most of the 10 broken battleships belonged to Potion and Tool Pavilion. Of course, he couldn't stay calm. In this journey, among the 4 forces, only Potion and Tool Pavilion didn't have an incipient God Realm expert. When the battleships faced danger, Blood Devil, Bath, Gut, and Feng Yang would naturally rescue their battleships first. When they weren't free to help, Potion and Tool Pavilion's battleships would be smashed as they became the exposed targets. It was natural. Blood Devil, Bath, Gut, and Feng Yang had their own ideas. They wouldn't ignore their forces' battleships to rescue Potion and Tool Pavilions. After waves of attack, 10 of Potion and Tool Pavilion's battleships had gone. Jar Duo couldn't be happy, indeed. That year, you came to Shadow Ghostly Prison from a chaotic space basin through this route? Fu Wei admired her secretly. She looked at Xia Xinyang, asking, "Which realm were you and what kind of vehicle did you use to get here?" Elegant Xia Xinyang was calm. Hearing her questions, she had a pain that she couldn't conceal on her face. She looked as if she didn't want to recall that memory. However, she just sighed and said nothing. That year, they got through a strange space inside the Ice and Fire secret domain to come here. The difficulties they had undergone were something ordinary people didn't dare to think or imagine. The warriors of the Pure Land and of the other forces following her to this place had all died one after another. There weren't more than 10 survivors. During her whole life, there wasn't any time more dangerous and terrifying than that journey. Today, when she saw Blood Devil and the others effortlessly dealing with the meteors, which had smashed their souls and bodies that year, she felt something else. She had become stronger. Her current status and position were higher. This time when she returned to that old, horrible place, Her battleships of the Windstorm War departments hadn't broken one. Now she knew that she wasn't that hopeless Xia Xinyang from that year who was filled with despair and fear as she knew she would be killed in any minute. Swoosh! An electric beam crossed by. Feng Yang of Fighting League descended. She looked at the area ahead of them and exhaled. Ahead of us is an area with less trouble. We should take a rest there. Is it okay? She looked at Xia Xinyang because she knew how Xia Xinyang had come to Shadow Ghostly Prison that year. She knew Xia Xinyang had a clear impression of this place more than anyone else. Xia Xinyang nodded gently. We should have 3 days to rest. After crossing the most dangerous area, we will reach the space canal where the Dark Shadow Clan base is. Seems like we're about to get over it. Feng Yang looked tired. 3 days later, it will be more strenuous. At that time, we will lose many battleships. Along the way, Xia Xinyang had kept a close observation of the 4 incipient God Realm experts. She understood their reflexes. As she used to travel through that area, she knew how dangerous it was. Jia Juo's face became more grimaced. Every time the battleships of Potion and Tool Pavilion, Monster Clan, Demon Clan, and Fighting League were in trouble, the 4 incipient God Realm experts would instinctively rescue and support each other. However, they had abandoned Potion and Tool Pavilion. After several waves of attack, Potion and Tool Pavilion had always borne loss. If it would be more perilous after 3 days, how could Potion and Tool Pavilion survive it? Jia Juo regretted and thought that he shouldn't have come here. While they were talking, Blood Devil, Bath, and GUT also arrived. This was the battleship of the Fighting League, which stayed in the middle of the formation. They used this battleship as their temporary meeting room. This evil place gives people a headache. Bath was foul-mouthed. It still has another wave of trouble ahead. We must recover quickly. Hey, does Potion and Tool Pavilion have any pellets suitable for incipient God Realm experts to recover their energy? Don't be stinky. Give me some bottles. I will take care of Potion and Tool Pavilion's battleships later, so you can save some. Jia Juo's face was grimaced already. Listening to him, he looked as if his parents had all left him. He didn't reply. Blood Devil laughed loudly. He was about to tease him before he saw something all of a sudden. He was shocked to see a battleship of his demon clan. Seeing him surprised, the others also looked at that place. They were all shaken. A muscular figure was standing atop that battleship. He clasped his hands behind his back, looking forward. His eyes seemed to react to the meteors around while his body generated an unknown energy fluctuation. Gradually, starlight glowed radiantly on his body as if he had formed a subtle connection with the meteors around. He seemed to become part of this chaotic shooting meteor area. Some surrounding meteors even had his aura. That man was Shiyang. Chapter 1043, Shoulder the Responsibility. Chapter 1043, Shoulder the Responsibility. Meteors moved around Shiyang like flaming diamonds, changing constantly. They flew around while drawing beautiful lights with explosive power. Shiyang clasped his hands, standing atop the battleships and looking here and there. His soul was empty, but he seemed to know the directions of those meteors. As soon as his ethereal extent was formed, he had a tremendous change. His power Upanishads had combined perfectly with the ethereal extent. When he urged different energies, the ethereal extent would change accordingly. It cooperated closely with the soul to perform the best subtle ability of one power Upanishad. His ethereal extent looked like a new galaxy, with shining broken stars and a big star that used to be hidden in the nebula in his lower abdomen. That star had the vague energy of life and death. The stars and space were the essential elements of the universe. Today, his ethereal extent seemed to perfectly resize the universe with the eternal life and death energy, magically and continually changing inside. Being the owner of the ethereal extent, he was the sole god of that world who could control everything. His power Upanishads could change endlessly in his ethereal extent, and they could flash in the real world as well. The only thing he regretted was that his devouring power Upanishad didn't merge with the ethereal extent. He vaguely felt that the ability of his devouring power Upanishad didn't need the ethereal extent to become effective. His ethereal extent connected to 720 acupuncture points in his entire body. His acupuncture points were like a bunch of small spaces. If the ethereal extent was a sea, the acupuncture points were 720 small lakes. As long as he could solve the mysteries in there, those lakes could stream into the sea. Perhaps, at that moment, he could finally understand the magical abilities of the devouring power Upanishad. Shi Yang had a good vibe he had never had before. Looking at the rocketing meteors, he relaxed his mind to connect his soul consciousness to them. At this moment, he could see something inexplicable. The complex, disorderly trajectories of the stars reflected in his sea of consciousness. Shi Yang was now able to grasp a good knowledge of their flying rules and courses. It was a new and exciting experience. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Silhouettes gathered from the other battleships. Blood Devil, Bath, Gut, Feng Yang, Fu Wei, Xia Xinyang, and Jiajuo appeared, looking at him in awe. You've built the ethereal extent. Blood Devil laughed, his face happy. Fu Wei and Xia Xinyang had a strange light ripple through their pretty eyes. Yeah, I've successfully built the ethereal extent, Shi Yang smiled modestly. Not as difficult as I thought. The people there were frightened, having a brilliant light flashing in their eyes as they admired and sighed. He had used several months to create the ethereal extent. Compared to the majority of warriors, his speed was incredible. They couldn't have even imagined this kind of a speedy breakthrough. Jiajuo sighed inwardly, frightened of Shi Yang's outstanding talent. He realized his narrow-minded vision which couldn't recognize Shi Yang's powerful potential. This place is a little strange. While people were still baffled, Shi Yang frowned, looking ahead of them as he said, "Those meteors are so powerful. They move really fast with an endless power. As we're flying in this place, we've met a lot of trouble, I assume?" Blood Devil, Bath, Gut, and Feng Yang, the four incipient God Realm experts exchanged forced smiles. Jiajuo's face was grimaced. He lowered his voice, whispering, "Our potion and tool pavilion has lost 10 battleships." Shi Yang didn't mind him. He looked at Xia Xinyang, sighing. "You had to endure a lot of trouble that year." He knew of Xia Xinyang's realm 100 years ago. He also knew that they had to jump into the chaotic space basin from the ice and fire secret domain. On the way to Shadow Ghostly Prison, they had to experience so many adversities. Shi Yang could feel for her, thinking about what dangerous and hopeless situation she had to overcome that year. "I am living happily now, aren't I?" Xia Xinyang smiled warmly and tenderly. Her beautiful face only had joy, as the gloomy thoughts were all washed away. Fu Wei looked at Shi Yang and Xia Xinyang whispering to each other, and had a rare lost expression. She could only sigh weakly inwardly. "We will enter the most dangerous area in 3 days. At that time, there'll be more shooting stars. The battleships would have to face impacts on a large scale. It's good that you woke up. Otherwise, if the battleship shook, it could have affected your condition." Blood Devil grinned, patting Shi Yang's shoulder. "Good. You're doing well. I think your future attainment would surpass mine." As Bath and Gut saw Blood Devil being so excited, they frowned and then turned around to scold McGee and Gu Mo, saying that they didn't put much effort, and were just playing and messing around. If they didn't set their mind on cultivating, they would never turn into the new stars. McGee didn't bother with it as he grinned strangely. "My brother Shi Yang has extraordinary talents. Of course, normal people can't compare with him." Gu Mo just glared at Shi Yang, saying nothing. 3 days later, the meteors in front of them could be seen moving like flaming balls. More than 1,000 fireballs were moving, weaving with each other to create a thick mesh light net. They traveled really fast, giving people an impressive visual shock. Xia Xinyang discolored, talking all of a sudden. "It doesn't look quite right." Feng Yang also knitted her brows. "It's much dangerous than the past. It's not what I've seen." Blood Devil, Gut, and Bath looked at the area ahead of them, their faces stern. They all raised one hand to signal their sauntering battleships to stop moving. Feng Yang and Jiajuo immediately signaled to their battleships as well. The battleships of Fighting League and Potion and Tool Pavilion also halted. Many warriors gingerly looked forward, knitting their brows. Electric beams sparked in the void due to those interlaced meteors, creating an explosive energy. The collisions due to the shooting stars were extremely horrifying. No need to mention the battleships, even the incipient God Realm experts couldn't relax while dealing with them. What awaits behind that area? Shi Yang suddenly asked, looking at Feng Yang and Xia Xinyang. It's a space hub with passages leading to other star areas. It's the most magical area of the Shadow Ghostly Prison, with countless space slits. However, most of those space slits aren't clear. The Fighting League isn't sure what kind of dangers await in those space slits, and which star areas they connect to. Feng Yang contemplated for a while. She couldn't help but look at Jia Duo and Fu Wei. Your potion and tool pavilion understands the general picture of Agate Star area much better. Do you have any information about this place? Jia Duo and Fu Wei exchanged looks, forcing a smile. Fu Wei explained, this area has the surveillance light mirrors of the satellite eye, which is a magical tool of potion and tool pavilion. However, Great Elders Wu Lu controls this system. Someone is using supernatural powers to block the area ahead. They want to prevent people from entering the area easily. Shi Yang pondered for a while, closing his eyes to sense. Many shooting stars over there don't belong to the area. Someone has mobilized them and changed their trajectories, so they are wreaking havoc here. Pausing for a while, he took a deep breath, opening his arms. Don't be upset if I attack your confidence. Even if we have 4 incipient God Realm experts to protect us, we will lose at least half of the battleships we have here. It's just a modest estimation. I think that the losses would be bigger. As soon as he said that, everyone couldn't help but grimace. It had been several months since they had chosen the quiet route to enter the space canal controlled by the Dark Shadow clan. They had to do that to prevent disclosing their whereabouts. If they used the regular route, the Dark Shadow clan would spot them instantly, and it would be hard to carry out a sudden operation. However, if they returned now, not only they would waste their time, but the Dark Shadow clan would also have a chance to bust them. The Dark Shadow clan had been operating in this area for so many years, and their understanding was much deeper than the Potion and Tool Pavilion or the Fighting Leagues. If they knew this force's whereabouts and purpose, they could set up preparations and ambush. Blood Devil's team would be the ones with bad luck at that point. As we're here, we can only move forward or retreat and quit entering the Dark Shadow clan space passage. When we change our route, this big commotion will cause us to fall into the Dark Shadow clan's trap. Feng Yang pondered and then said seriously, I suggest returning to Dark Shadow clan and quitting this operation. If we have to pay with the loss of our force, I assume what we may obtain won't make up for our losses. It would be a big blow for us. Jia Duo nodded immediately. I agree. Blood Devil, Bath, and Gut frowned, hesitating. At this moment, they didn't know what to do. It's not impossible to get over it. While they were still discussing, Shi Yang intervened, causing everybody to focus on him. While frowning, Shi Yang closed his eyes in front of many people. A wave of magical energy fluctuation expanded from him quietly, extending towards the chaotic area of madly shooting stars. After Shi Yang had generated his ethereal extent, his understanding of star power Upanishad had advanced by one more step. He could vaguely create a contact with many kinds of star. The meteors were also stars, so Shi Yang used his soul consciousness as his eyes. He urged the star power Upanishad, with his sea of consciousness surging. As a result, a dazzling, beautiful picture appeared in his soul. It was the dangerous, ever-changing area in front of them. Each of the ever-shifting flaming meteors with the terrifying explosive energy seemed to be reflected in his mind. Their trajectories that ordinary people could never know now had a wisp of Shi Yang's soul consciousness, which helped him understand the exact moving pattern of each meteor. He concentrated, understanding them in silence. He stood still while having a good grasp of the flying rules of more than 1,000 meteors. Everybody watched him, not disturbing him with even a single word. They all had a miraculous feeling that they could trust Shi Yang. He was the one with the wonderful abilities to overturn this situation. They could vaguely recognize that Shi Yang could use his soul consciousness to contact those meteors. With this thought, they knew that the ones who could lead them through that matrix of perilous meteors weren't the four incipient God Realm experts. Rather, it would be Shi Yang. This feeling was hard to describe with words. But it was there in their hearts. They all looked at him with hope. After a long time, Shi Yang took in a deep breath, his eyes as bright as diamonds. He smiled. "We will hover for now. Then, we will move forward in my direction. That's how we can get through that area without any harm. I've scattered my soul consciousness, sending wisps to each shooting star. I know their flying trajectories." Everybody had their eyes brightening. Sigma _. Hey guys. If you see any chapter with a missing part PLZ, send me a message in my Discord. I'll translate missing part and add it in later. Support me at patreon.com Sigma_Sama. Donate at PayPal. Me Sigma Sama. Vote. Let's make top 10 again. Mass release if GOS reach top 10 at the end of the month. Chapter 1044, The Remains of the Holy Beast. Chapter 1044, The Remains of the Holy Beast. __. Move forward, faster. Stop. Move at max speed. Slow down. Slow down now. Shi Yang stood on the leading battleship. He squinted as if he was becoming one with the meteors and continually gave directions. Around them were the thickly moving meteors. They fell like the heavy rain, moving along with the surging powerful energy. Around 1,000 battleships of Demon Clan, Monster Clan, Fighting League, and Potion and Tool Pavilion were moving forward like the sharp lance. Sometimes, they ran fast, while they had to slow down at the other times. Still, they were moving steadily through the shower of meteors. Each direction of Shi Yang was passed to all the battleships. This massive group of battleships followed his instruction to change its speed. Blood Devil, Bath, Gute, and Feng Yang, the four incipient God Realm experts, guarded the front and the back of the battleships. They were ready if something terrible happened. Shi Yang would often make them enter the area with the thickest meteors. In the beginning, everybody was suspicious. They thought he was just making things up and guiding them around. And those meteors weren't still. They were moving at breakneck speed. In front of their eyes, it was a chaotic area of shooting stars. But when their battleships arrived, the meteors scattered, revealing a long, narrow canal, which could reluctantly allow them to keep moving through. After several times, people could eventually calm their nerves. They all followed Shi Yang's direction without any objection. Shi Yang became the Ruji Jingu Bang of this group. Under his direction, this group of battleships had to bob a lot. However, they were all safe, as they didn't have any deadly collision with the meteors anymore. Jia Duo and Fu Wei looked at Shi Yang in the front of the battleship from a distance, their faces complicated. They understood that without Shi Yang, when this group of 1,000 battleships moved forward, their Potion and Tool Pavilion would have had to bear a significant loss. They didn't have an incipient God Realm expert to watch over them. Whenever they encountered danger, the Potion and Tool Pavilion would receive the harshest consequence. 10 smashed battleships were enough to prove this. At this moment, they were struggling while moving forward through a more dangerous area. However, the battleships of Potion and Tool Pavilion were safe, and they didn't have to bear losses anymore. Although Jia Duo kept his prejudice towards Shi Yang, he couldn't deny that the Potion and Tool Pavilion owed Shi Yang this time. This man's really mysterious and unpredictable, Jia Duo sighed. After this event, he would receive more favors from the Monster Clan, Demon Clan, and the Fighting League. His future in Agate Star area would be clear and bright. Fu Wei nodded. He can break through to a new realm pretty quickly. At his current speed, he could reach the incipient God Realm within 100 years. At that time, he would have a position in Agate Star area, and would become the new Dazzling Star, and even a new legend. Jia Duo forced a smile. I've underestimated him. Fortunately, he has a fair relationship with our party. If he were with Great Elders Walu, he would be our nightmare. Fu Wei said weakly. Yeah, you have keen eyes. I'm not as good as you. Jia Duo admitted reluctantly. It's good that you've already established a friendship with him. Without him in the Life Star number 9, The Ghost Mark clan and Dark Shadow clan would have killed us all. Jia Duo looked at Fu Wei with his torch-like eyes. Yes, it's true, muttered Fu Wei. That time. There's something we don't know, right? Did that third sky of incipient God Realm expert come for him? Asked Jia Duo. Fu Wei pondered for a while before giving a slight nod. Jia Duo's eyes radiated faint light. He gazed at Fu Wei for a while and then said, "It's unfortunate that the pavilion master can't get married. Otherwise, if you could be with him, it would be something everybody would feel happy about." Fu Wei blushed and sighed. "I don't have that fortune. Xia Xinyang is much better than me in all aspects." "You don't need to think much." Jia Duo sighed, shaking his head. He didn't talk more. "What's the relationship between you and him?" In another corner of the battleship, Feng Yang frowned while asking. Xia Xinyang was perplexed. She turned around, looking at Feng Yang. Then, she nodded and asked with surprise. "What do you mean?" "I'm saying that. Have you and Xia Yang reached that step yet?" asked Feng Yang seriously. While smiling, Xia Xinyang didn't answer but pried, "Why does Precursor Feng Yang care about my personal matter?" "Your personal matter is very important in our hegemon's eyes," Feng Yang hissed. Pondering for a while, she said, "I support you too." Xia Xinyang's eyes brightened as she smiled. "I think you always want me to save effort for my cultivation, don't you? In Fighting League, you've helped me stop many suitors. In front of the hegemon, you've always opposed anything that may distract me. Why, do you say so today?" "That boy is a good kid." Feng Yang looked at Xia Yang standing far from them, smiling lovingly. "And only he could be a perfect match for you. I was young once, and I've experienced the knot of love. It's regrettable that a woman does not have even a single romantic relationship to recall when she gets older. I don't want you to become an old, senile maid." "He won't agree," Xia Xinyang contemplated, smiling begrudgingly. "He is really conservative and stubborn." Feng Yang's face was also severe. "He treats you like you're his blood younger sister, he always does. He thinks all the factors that can affect your cultivation should be squeezed off. It's not easy to convince him. Anyway, if that boy can be stronger to the point he gets the hegemon's approval, and the hegemon can't smash him with his tricks, perhaps your relationship would be successful. So, do you think he can reach such a peak?" Xia Xinyang's face was happy. Feng Yang pondered for a while and then nodded smilingly. "I think he can." Xia Xinyang was so happy she couldn't hide it. She stooped and smiled joyfully. "Hey old dog, your fortune isn't bad. You've got a strong fellow like him. No wonder why you didn't regret anything when you wanted to storm into Shadow Ghostly Prison to find him." Barth looked at Blood Devil, talking. "I didn't get why you did that at that time. I didn't know why you suddenly went crazy, either. But, now I know that you've done the right things this time." Gut added, "Xia Yang isn't ordinary indeed. Our Agate Star area hasn't had any outstanding juniors like him. As you and him are from the same tribe, Blood Devil, you have made a huge fortune this time." Blood Devil laughed cheerily until his eyes squinted and said excitedly, "Sure I did." In Devil Bloodstar, Xia Yang had given him the inheritance of Death Power Upanishad, which had triggered his realm to the point of another breakthrough. From that moment, he knew Xia Yang wasn't an ordinary warrior. He appreciated and took care of this fellow carefully. Thus, when Xia Yang sent him the message saying that he was in a trouble that could take his life, Blood Devil immediately went to Shadow Ghostly Prison to save Xia Yang. He wanted Xia Yang to be safe and sound. What had happened had proven his premonition. Xia Yang knew of the earth-shaking conspiracy of the Dark Shadow Clan and God Clan. With his charisma and the endless potential, Xia Yang had gained the approval from Gut and Barth of the Monster Clan. Blood Devil knew that from now on, Barth and Gut would consider Xia Yang as the #1 character, no longer looking down on him. Through this trip to the space canal of the Dark Shadow Clan, Xia Yang's reputation would reach another height. He would become a key person, such that the forces everywhere in Agate Star area would have to keep their eyes on him. Soaring was the word to describe Xia Yang's situation. Blood Devil felt so happy. His smile became happier and broader. Shi Yang didn't know how Feng Yang of Fighting League, Jia Duo, and Fu Wei of Potion and Tool Pavilion, and the 3 experts of the Monster Clan and Demon Clan had assessed him. He didn't know that after this time, he had stepped into the divine eyes of those famous characters for the first time. He had officially entered the great arena of Shadow Ghostly Prison. His soul consciousness was still flying ahead as he was trying to capture the rules and trajectories of those meteors. After all, he had to give the directions continually. After an unknown time, Shi Yang felt tired. He then sensed the directions of the surrounding meteors before he could exhale in relief. He could sense they had passed the toughest section. The road ahead would be much easier. Taking a deep breath, he didn't release more energy. He retrieved a part of his soul consciousness, sitting down quietly. 15 minutes later, 2 silhouettes approached him, looking thrilled. Opening his eyes, Shi Yang was surprised. What's happened? They were Zuo and Xian Ming, who should be staying inside the battleship at this moment. They looked so excited, pointing in a direction with their eyes brightened. I felt it. I did feel it. It's the aura of the remains of our holy ancestor. Zuo flung her arms, jumping up and down. Her small, white hand pointed at a meteor, which was moving neither slow nor fast ahead of them. It's inside that star. Over there. Xian Ming's eyes were watery as he screamed continually. We've finally found the remains of our holy ancestor. It's right in Shadow Ghostly Prison. Shi Yang was touched. He knew why Zuo and Xian Ming entered Shadow Ghostly Prison. It was because of the body of the Black Tortoise, one of the 4 holy beasts in the Grace Mainland. He was an ancient beast in the immemorial epoch. He had left the Grace Mainland to enter the vast universe a long, long time ago. Creatures that belonged to the Black Tortoise family knew how to swim. When they were born, they would have already understood the power of water, which made them incredibly strong. Their ancestors lived in the immemorial epoch, which was much before the time the seeds of the God Clan landed. The 4 holy beasts had passed down the inheritance through their bloodlines. Zuo's blood had the inheritance seal of the Black Tortoise. However, the seal was just a seal. It didn't carry the essence knowledge of Black Tortoise's realm advancement accumulated over tens of thousands of years. According to Zuo and Xian Ming, the remains of Black Tortoise had the water essence of their ancestor. Once Zuo got it, she could transform immediately. No one could have expected that Zuo could really sense the aura of the holy beast Black Tortoise in this area. Looking in the direction her finger pointing at, Shi Yang sent a flow of his soul consciousness to check that shooting star. He found that the star seemed to have an ocean with thick moisture. His soul consciousness was blocked by the foam and water bubbles, such that it couldn't reflect the situation inside that meteor. Shi Yang immediately knew that it should be something magical in the core of that shooting star. If Zuo weren't wrong, the remains of the holy beast Black Tortoise should be there. Shi Yang Jidi, you must help me. Zuo looked at him with begging eyes. Yeah, don't worry. I'll help you get it. Chapter 1045, The Change of the Co-Soul. Chapter 1045, The Change of the Co-Soul. Shi Yang didn't hurry to help Zuo take the remains of the holy beast Black Tortoise. Although this area was relatively safe, the meteors were still moving. It wasn't a good idea for almost 1,000 battleships to anchor here. Informing Zuo, Shi Yang closed his eyes, giving directions to guide 1,000 battleships into the safe route. Half a day later, when the meteors around them gradually disappeared, Shi Yang exhaled in relief. Blood Devil's team gathered, their faces happy and full of smiles. Everybody knew that without Shi Yang, they couldn't have crossed that savagely disordered area. Even Jia Duo, the one with a bad prejudice against Shi Yang, also came to express his sincere thanks. After all, without Shi Yang, the Potion and Tool Pavilion might have no battleship left after they forcefully crossed that area. Feng Yang and the others could finally relax. They immediately turned to excited mode as they wanted to get into the passage which the Dark Shadow Clan guarded immediately. Wait for me. I need to get back there for several days, blurted Shi Yang. People didn't know what he wanted. Why do you want to get back there? Asked Blood Devil with surprise. In that chaotic shooting stars area, I found something very important to me. Shi Yang didn't want to say it clearly. Give me a war chariot. It won't take long. After I'm done with it, I will come and find you guys. Do you want me to go with you? Blood Devil wanted to shoulder the responsibility with him. Ah, no need. Blood Devil nodded. He didn't even ask him to be careful, because in his eyes, the dangerous place to other people couldn't trouble Shi Yang. He then immediately arranged a war chariot for Shi Yang. Shi Yang floated, jumping on the war chariot. He waved at Zhuoshi, then under everyone's gaze, he returned to the perilous area they had just got rid of. Shortly after, the war chariot brought them back to the area of the chaotic shooting stars. Shi Yang released his soul consciousness to navigate. He used his soul to drive the war chariot, moving slowly. Sometimes, it swayed to dodge the meteors, which seemed like flaming diamonds. Not long afterward, Shi Yang's face changed, smiling. I found it. Zhuoshi smiled excitedly. The war chariot turned into a beam of light, zooming over that massive meteor which had the flaming fluid on its surface. The star looked as red as a burning iron. While it was moving unceasingly, the meteor seemed like boiling, fiery lava. Their war chariot couldn't stand the high temperature of that meteor, and was about to melt. Shi Yang was frightened. He left the war chariot and hurried to use his energy, creating a light cage to cover himself and Zhuoshi. Floating inside the beautiful light cage, Shi Yang and Zhuoshi slowly landed on the surface of the meteor. The surface of this star looked as if it had rivers made of flaming fluid, which released waves of fiery light. It was so hot that even his starlight cage was a little twisted. It's too hot. Zhuoshi stuck her tongue out, which also made her look cute. She took off her white coat, revealing her moonbright arms. Her innocent face reddened like a ripe apple. Shi Yang chuckled while his mind flickered as he said, "We need something." Touching his glabella, Shi Yang urged the energy of his co-soul to mobilize the extremely cold aura of the ice-cold flame. Shortly, the icy cold air diffused from his body, which strengthened the starlight cage, giving it a layer of crystal ice. The hot temperature was blocked outside. The different energies of the ambience and the ice cage collided, causing steam to rise up as the burning feeling was swept away. Zhuoshi suddenly felt so cool and comfortable that she couldn't utter a word for a while. She then smiled like a blooming flower while talking to Shi Yang. "Thank you, Shi Yang Gege." Shi Yang didn't say anything. His brows twitched as he observed the meteors underneath. A strange light shot out of his eyes. After reaching the ethereal god realm, he had checked his co-soul. It seemed to have had some magical changes, but they were so subtle that he couldn't describe them. His co-soul seemed to have had changes in its structure. The aura of the heaven flames and origin had merged perfectly with his soul. Vaguely, he knew that his co-soul was transformed, but he didn't know the details. However, after landing on this meteor, his co-soul released some marvelous vibes which resonated with some energy fluctuation in this place. He felt that it could give him a chance to understand something new. It looked like something inside this meteor had attracted Shi Yang's co-soul, something that should be fused with the co-soul, as if it used to be a part which had gone missing somehow. Zhuoshi didn't understand as she looked at him with surprise while asking, "What happened?" Shaking his head, Shi Yang didn't answer immediately. He drove the light cage, taking Zhuoshi to sway through a crack on the ground, which could have been caused by a volcano eruption. They slowly descended to the core of the star. Shortly after, a layer of viscous energy stood in front of Shi Yang and Zhuoshi like water, which the light cage made of starlight and cold energy couldn't get through. Furrowing his brows, Shi Yang released a wisp of soul consciousness, trying to drill through the barrier. Puff! It felt like he was barging into a rubber ball as his wisp of soul consciousness bounced backward. He couldn't get through the water-like barrier at all. Hey! Seeing this, Shi Yang became interested. His bright eyes studied the barrier condensed by some special energy, trying to use his soul to understand it. After several breaths, his eyes brightened and he couldn't help but shout. "It's the aura of the origin." Each ancient continent had one origin. Shi Yang hadn't figured out what the origin was, but he understood one thing: the origin of an ancient continent had the power to gather the energy of the immense universe. The universe was immensely vast. Space, even a speck of dust in a galaxy, or the secret areas all had energy. Those kinds of energy floated and appeared everywhere in the universe. Ordinary warriors couldn't collect this kind of energy, and it was of no use to them. Only the ancient continents could gather the magical energies, storing them in the core of the planet to convert them into heaven and earth energy. A part of this energy could form the divine crystals, or even evolve into living beings. It could be said that the heaven and earth energy of a life star, the energy from divine crystals, spiritual chi, demon chi, dark chi, corpse chi, and yin chi that the warriors could absorb, as well as the energy of the sun and the moon, could be converted from this kind of energy that existed everywhere. Although it existed in every corner of the vast universe, it was like an invisible ocean. Different kinds of energies one could use in this world were the results of such energy being converted into them. The ancient continents with an origin could gather those kinds of energies and convert them to allow the planet to have magical abilities. Inside the water-like barrier under the surface of the meteor was the aura of the origin from the Grace mainland. It was weak and diluted, which was far behind the origin his co-soul had. However, in combination with the water power Upanishad, it gave the water barrier a subtle defense that was hard to resolve. Of course, it was hard for ordinary people. Shi Yang's co-soul was the origin of the Grace mainland, and that wisp of origin underneath came from the same source as his. Shi Yang calmed down, trying to establish a connection as his co-soul moved slowly. However, it could create a magical suction force, drawing the weak wisp of origin that had merged into the water barrier. Then, that wisp of origin entered Shi Yang's co-soul. Without that feeble support from the origin, the marvelous defense of the water barrier was resolved. Zhuosha screamed happily as she tore the water barrier without waiting for Shi Yang to react. The two of them got inside the meteor. Behind the barrier was a world of brilliantly colored gemstones. The remains of an immemorial creature lied there. It was several thousand meters long, with a snake head and a turtle body. However, it didn't have skin or flesh, but the crystalline, gem-like bones. Inside the bones, they could hear the water murmuring with a magical aura. Shi Yang floated in the void. Looking at the remains of the holy beast black tortoise lying on the ground full of sparkling gemstones, he felt a natural respect. The body of the black tortoise was several thousand meters long, which was much more imposing than the biggest battleship he had ever seen. And, that was in the condition that there was no flesh remaining. Shi Yang could imagine how terrifying this immemorial creature would have been when it moved in the air. While he was admiring, Zhuosha was crying. Her crystal-clear tears rolled down her face as she sobbed. Her diamond-like tears dropped like precious gemstones, falling on the remains of the holy beast black tortoise. An unclear energy wave fluctuated from Zhuosha and the holy beast black tortoise. In the next moment, the remains of the holy beast turned into countless shining spots. They became so dazzling while the solid body suddenly turned into an illusion. It flew up little by little until it hovered above Zhuosha's head. Zhuosha was dumbstruck. She immediately sat down cross-legged, mobilizing her subtle energy to guide the illusion of the holy beast black tortoise. Gradually, the illusion disappeared into her body. The incomparable several thousand meter long illusion was slowly disappearing into Zhuosha's soft, petite body. Shi Yang was so surprised that he couldn't move his eyes from Zhuosha, his face baffled. He saw some tattoo appear on Zhuosha's exposed arms and shoulders. That mysterious tattoo was the trace of the illusion of the black tortoise. In the beginning, it was pretty clear. But after a while, it faded and completely disappeared, as if it had dissolved into Zhuosha's flesh and blood. Zhuosha's body echoed the murmuring sounds of water. It was gentle to the ears, and could soothe people. As Shi Yang listened to the relaxing flowing water sound, his heart calmed down. His soul started to change as his soul consciousness bobbed. It seemed like some magical abilities of his co-soul had been triggered. He was shaken while a beautiful light sparkled in his eyes and he felt thrilled. His co-soul was slowly gathering the scattered energy in the vast sea of stars, which were the remnants of different kinds of energies that only the ancient continents could have. The bits of such energies were guided by the co-soul, moving towards the ethereal extent he had just formed. At this moment, His co-soul seemed to become a magical core of the ancient continent that could drag and absorb the energy scattered everywhere in this universe. Although it was slow and little, it did exist. Shi Yang was sensitive enough to spot it. He knew that those remnants of energy were the primal form of the heaven and earth energy. Although they weren't pure, they could be converted to the magical essence qi, dark qi, demon qi, yin qi, and the other pure energies. However, Shi Yang didn't know the true value of those kinds of energies. Those remnants of outer space energy flowed into his ethereal extent torrentially, making it closer to the real universe. The radiant star in that world seemed to be developed into an ancient continent, which was gathering energy from the real world to create a mysterious domain. Chapter 1046, Cutting Space. Chapter 1046, Cutting Space. Shi Yang woke up feeling better than ever, his face joyful. Although he didn't know what the energy remnant in outer space flooding his ethereal extent could do, he was sure it wasn't harmful to him, because he could feel his ethereal extent was changing magically in silence. Inside the meteor lied so many colored gemstones which were so precious in the world of ordinary people. However, to Shi Yang, a warrior cultivating the heaven and earth energy, they were nothing. Those gemstones didn't contain the heaven and earth energy. They weren't divine crystals. On the other side, the remains of the holy beast Black Tortoise had wholly disappeared into Zhuoshe's body. She sat cross-legged on the ground filled with magnificent gemstones, looking calm while smiling naturally. Shi Yang studied her, and his eyes smilingly brightened. Zhuoshe had broken through to the original god realm. The remains of the holy beast Black Tortoise should have given many supernatural powers to Zhuoshe, the one carrying the Black Tortoise's bloodline. Otherwise, she couldn't have reached the original god realm that fast. Zhuoshe's progress was incredible in Shi Yang's eyes. When he met her in this galaxy, Zhuoshe was only at the second sky of King God realm. With the pellets Fu Wei of Potion and Tool Pavilion gave her, she had reached the third sky of King God realm easily. Yet today, she made another big step forward. Shi Yang wasn't hurried, as he stayed and watched Zhuoshe in silence. Zhuoshe wore a pure long white dress, and her posture was so cute. Her delicate face was decorated with long eyelashes. Even when she was sitting, her long-limbed figure made people feel for her. Shi Yang always had good feelings for Zhuoshe. When he was still in the quiet Cloudland or the Sky Meteor City, he had been close to Zhuoshe. With the relationship between the Shi family and the Zhuo family, Shi Yang and Zhuoshe were engaged. However, since the other Shi Yang didn't want to cultivate his martial path but put his whole life effort on studying ancient books and relics, the Zhuo family was utterly disappointed. Thus, they renounced the engagement unilaterally. When Shi Yang's soul got into that body, he had exposed his talent shortly after. Zhuoshe regretted his past decision, and had mentioned this engagement one more time to Shi Jian. At that time, Shi Yang had already left for the Endless Sea. So, they couldn't do anything about this engagement anymore. Even after hundreds of years, he had always been fighting, not having even a moment of peace. And, he didn't stay in the quiet Cloudland anymore. Gradually, Zhuoshe erased that reluctant thought from his mind. Sometimes Shi Yang thought that if he hadn't entered the Endless Sea, he would have had a marriage with Zhuoshe that everybody would have to admire. However, their plan couldn't have followed the changes of wind. His character would have given him troubles, and wouldn't let him live in a place for the rest of his life. He thought and chuckled after a while. Zhuoshe opened her eyes, showing her clear eyes, which didn't have any conspiracies hidden in them. She looked at Shi Yang while smiling gently. "I've reached the original god realm." Perhaps because Zhuoshe was so happy, she stood up, moving agilely towards Shi Yang. She threw her arms around his neck, talking happily. "I'm so happy I've broken through another realm. This time, I'm sure my grandpa would be thrilled." Zhuoshe's body was soft, with a refreshing and sweet fragrance. She was like a good wine that seeped into people's hearts. Her small face wore an excited expression, which was so attractive. As she was hugging his neck, Shi Yang couldn't help but feel his heart beating faster. Taking in the sweet aroma on her body, Shi Yang's breathing became heavy. This sweet maiden made him unable to hold it in. "Shi Yang Gij, you're bad." Zhuosha could feel something. Her beautiful eyes rolled, pretending to throw a glance at Shi Yang's lower abdomen. She immediately let him off and swayed at her spot, covering her pink lips with both hands. "You're bad. So bad." Shi Yang was embarrassed. He smiled shyly before he could talk again. "As said in the agreement between the Shi family and the Zhuo family, you and I were engaged even before we were born. Haha, you could be my wife." PTSSS. Zhuosha stuck her tongue. "I don't want to be your wife. You're flirty. I'm sure I couldn't be happy being your wife. I should be your little sister. Haha, I like the feeling when you protect me. I don't like your dissolute face." Scratching his head, Shi Yang didn't want to tease her further. He said, "If you're done, we should go." He was worried that Blood Devil's team would be worried for them and come back here to search. Since it was related to the invasion of the God Clan, Shi Yang didn't dare to act recklessly. He must get the answer as soon as possible. "All right," Zhuosha smiled like a blooming flower. "I've reached the original God realm, but I think I can continue to break through." "What happened to the remains of the holy beast Black Tortoise?" asked Shi Yang. He was a little surprised. "They merged into my soul. They have become an illusion of Black Tortoise in the form of a seal as a part of my soul." Zhuosha didn't have any caution when talking to Shi Yang, so she explained to him clearly. "But I don't know how to use it yet. I think I need time to adapt to it and understand it further." Shi Yang was amazed. He stayed baffled for a while before he could talk again. "Congrats. I think you've received the genuine inheritance of Black Tortoise. Your future will be immeasurable." "Of course," Zhuosha thrust out her ample bosom, talking confidently like an arrogant swan. The two chatted for a while and then flew out of the meteor, landing on the war chariot anchored in the void. They immediately rode the war chariot back to the place. After a while, Shi Yang knitted his brows, his face darkening. Zhuosha was also surprised. "Something's wrong. I can't feel their life energy fluctuation." Before Zhuosha had reached the original God realm and her soul had transformed, she could sense the warriors at the lower realm within a specific scale. However, as Zhuosha had just released her soul consciousness, she couldn't feel anything. She looked at Shi Yang with surprise. "Can you feel them? Within our sensing range, they shouldn't be far from us. Perhaps they left without us. Is it possible?" Shi Yang darkened his face. "It's impossible." He had earned the trust of Blood Devil, Bath, Gut, and Feng Yang. It was just several days, and he did explain the situation to them. Blood Devil's team weren't some sort of impatient people. Shi Yang's realm was higher than Zhuosha's. After he had reached the ethereal god realm, with a deeper understanding of life power Upanishad, his sensing power towards life should be much more powerful. However, it was the same when he sensed. He couldn't feel any commotion from Blood Devil's group. It was just several days. Blood Devil wouldn't ditch him here and leave first. What had happened? The war chariot roared, moving like a light arrow while heading towards the area where 1,000 battleships were anchored. Shi Yang's face changed. Looking at the area where space had collapsed, his face was extremely stern. Space in that area collapsed deeply. They could see the fine space slits by the edge of that area, with brilliant outer space streamers. Since Shi Yang had cultivated space power Upanishad, he was struck at first glance. He knew what happened to that area. That piece of space was cut off and moved away directly. Shi Yang couldn't do such tricks. Although Jia Duo had also cultivated space power Upanishad, even he didn't have such ability. Unless that warrior who used the space ability had reached the incipient god realm. Observing that collapsed space, Shi Yang released his soul consciousness to sense, and his face became even more severe while a strange light sparkled in his eyes. After a while, he took a deep breath. Some expert cultivating space power Upanishad came here. That warrior used his supernatural ability to cut the space where the Monster Clan, Demon Clan, Potion and Tool Pavilion, and Fighting League were gathering, and moved it away. Zhuosha was frightened, asking, "That dangerous?" Beaming a forced smile, Shi Yang said, "Yeah, the warriors who have cultivated space power Upanishad to incipient god realm can be that strong. They can cut and move spaces. It's unimaginable to ordinary people, but they do have such powers. So, what should we do? Zhuoshe looked upset. Old Xian Ming's still with them. Although he's strict with me, he just wants me to be better. I don't want anything bad happening to him. I don't want to see them encounter bad things either. Shi Yang frowned. He also cultivated space power Upanishad. Especially after he had stepped into ethereal god realm, he knew how terrifying the warriors with space power Upanishad could be. People with space power Upanishad had many tricks to deal with the enemies. They didn't need to use much energy to attack anyway. For example, if he fought with a warrior at the same level, he could tear a piece of space to drag the enemy in there. He could use the chaotic space basin to wear out the enemy's energy to death. The chaotic space basin hiding in the space slits was extremely dangerous. Unless the enemy also cultivated space power Upanishad, which would help him find the exit, it would be impossible to get out. An expert who could cut the space should be able to apply such magical abilities. If the enemy brought the space where Blood Devil's team was staying to some death traps, even if Blood Devil and the others had reached incipient God realm, they wouldn't be able to break out of there. Xia Xinyang, Blood Devil, Fei Lan, Leona, Ka Tuor, Benny, and so many people he was concerned about were in that group. Shi Yang knew that with his current realm and power, he couldn't help them much even if he could find them. Anyhow, he must find them. So, what should we do to find them? Zhuoshe was so worried that her petite face had reddened. Why did some expert with space power suddenly attack them? Shi Yang fell into silence. After a while, he said, should be the Dark Shadow Clan. Why? The Dark Shadow Clan is clearing the space canal, preparing the way for the God Clan's invasion. If they want to drill through the space passage, they must have some experts cultivating space power Upanishad. I had thought about it earlier. But I didn't expect the others to be so strong. They even have incipient God realm experts. If I had known it earlier, I wouldn't have taken risks. The Agate Star area didn't have any expert cultivating space power Upanishad at the incipient God realm. Jia Duo was the strongest here, but he had only reached the third sky of ethereal God realm. Shi Yang knew how strenuous it was to break through to the new realm for such warriors. Thus, he instinctively assumed that the experts of their enemy had only reached the ethereal God realm. He made such a presumption, and the Dark Shadow expert who cultivated space power Upanishad had given him a slap on his face today with his actual ability. Sigh. I calculated wrongly. I forgot that the Dark Shadow Clan isn't a race from the Agate Star area. They have been dependent on the strongest clan in this universe, and have operated in other galaxies as well. It has been countless years perhaps. It's not impossible if this clan has incipient God realm experts who cultivate the space power Upanishad. So, can you find them? Zhuoshe was quite worried. I should be able to do that. Chapter 1047, Poisonous Sea. Chapter 1047, Poisonous Sea. A drop of scarlet immortal demon blood boiled, evaporating into red mist, which flashed and then disappeared into thin air. Zhuoshe frowned and looked at Shi Yang curiously. Her eyes brightened. Shi Yang squinted and used the mysterious power of the demon blood to search. The demon blood was indeed magical. When he was still in Raging Flame Star area, he could use it to sense life energy fluctuations of his family's members in Grace Mainland. Today, as his realm had reached ethereal God realm, his understanding of demon blood also advanced. No matter where Blood Devil had gone to, he could sense and locate him. After a while, his eyes sparkled and he lowered his voice. I found them. Driving the war chariot, he brought Zhuoshe flying forward at a very quick speed. After 1 hour, they reached the most incredible area of Shadow Ghostly Prison. Staying between the radiant outer space streamers were the space slits that were torn apart. This place was the entrance where Agate Star area was connected to the other star areas. Many of those space slits could lead to other worlds out there. Of course, most of the space passages here were stuck. Some passages hid the extreme dangers. Getting in without a thorough investigation could lead to a death which happened even faster than when facing a higher realm enemy. Inside the space passages were different, mysterious and yet fatal traps that the warriors who didn't have space power shouldn't enter. That was how they could save their souls from vanishing. So many space slits, Zworsha was curious. It looks similar to the border sea in Grace Mainland. Shi Yang nodded. There are so many magical things in the world. Many star areas connect to each other. To the experts, if they are strong enough, they could use those space passages to reach many different galaxies. I heard that a long, long time ago, the big star areas did have a close relationship. They would trade goods of their areas to receive cultivating materials from other star areas. It's not like that anymore. Zworsha was surprised. Shi Yang beamed a forced smile, shaking his head. No, it isn't. Why? Because creatures couldn't escape greed. Why do you say that? A long, long time ago, the big races have considered cultivating themselves as their top priority. Many clans loved peace. They wouldn't trespass. However, some clans started to become stronger and stronger. Gradually, they became less content with their lot. They began to invade other star areas. After pausing for a while, Shi Yang continued, different star areas have different races and different forces. For example, the high-level star areas could have stronger warriors in general. If they find a new star area whose level is lower than theirs with a general weak competence, they won't be kind enough to help the others grow. Quite the contrary, they will slaughter to rob their resources. Zworsha wasn't dumb. Listening to Shi Yang, she understood immediately. It's like when the experts of Agate Star area come through the space passage to invade our Grace Mainland. What do you think Grace Mainland would have faced? Shi Yang sighed. In the best situation, we would be captured to become slaves, or more likely, we would have all been massacred. He continued his explanation. That's why different star areas slowly cut off relationships with each other. Some star areas have unilaterally blocked the entrance or the space passage leading to other areas. They don't want the stronger forces from the higher-level star area come to invade their land. Especially when the God clan is getting stronger and stronger. It becomes a nightmare of the big star areas. Is it true that most of the space canals in this area were broken purposely? Asked Zworsha. Shi Yang nodded. Yeah, it's true. Although Agate Star area is a high-level star area, it's weaker than the God clan. As they don't want the other strong clans to invade them, they will initially block or break those space passages. Xia Xinyang was able to come here that year because Grace Mainland is a low-level star area. Perhaps in the Agate Star area's experts' opinions, our star area could never be a threat to them. They may even have thought that Grace Mainland could be a potential target. Thus, they didn't destroy that passage. Since Shi Yang had experienced many unfortunate events, he wasn't innocent anymore. His understanding of people's behaviors had become more thorough. He understood how evil and cruel people could be. Where are they? Asked Zworsha. Shi Yang pointed at a torn space slit. Inside that space slit. Do we need to get in there? Of course yes. The war chariot hissed, moving like a lightning strike and swaying through the space slit in just a blink of an eye. They had crossed many brilliantly colorful streamers as if they were moving in a space-time tunnel. After a long time traveling, the war chariot halted. It's so cold. Zworsha shivered. She looked ahead of them, becoming very surprised. Ah, there's a sea. How could a sea exist inside the space tunnel? Ahead of them was a sea with murmuring waves. Snowflakes were falling above the sea. It was strange that this sea had colorful steam and mist hovering which decorated with the ribbon-like outer space streamers. There was no earth and heaven energy, no sun, moon, or any star. In this closed world, Shi Yang and Zworsha couldn't sense any commotion of living beings. However, the magical sea was surging as if it was changing somehow. As their war chariot was hovering above the sea, Shi Yang at his ethereal god realm also felt chilled. He couldn't help but shudder. The icy aura came from the sea, but that sea only had snowflakes. The water wasn't frozen. Gusts of cold wind blew from a far distance, which was so severe that they could freeze people's bones and crack them. Zworsha had reached original god realm for not a long time. Her small face was pale, which showed how tremendous the cold air emitted from this sea was. Blocks of green, purple, blue, and red smokes hovered above the sea as if they were the rising sea water. A cluster of misty green clouds slowly approached their war chariot. The rigid war chariot melted as the green smoke covered it. The iron was dissolved, oozing. Shi Yang changed his visage and shouted, "It's poisonous. An extreme poison." He was so frightened, pulling Zhuorsha's hand to take her to another area. He sternly looked at the green misty clouds. He took a deep breath. That smoke contains extreme poison that can erode even metals. We can't stand it. So dangerous. Zhuorsha discolored. Shi Yang didn't reply and just frowned. He released his soul consciousness, wandering around the different colored clusters of cloud above the sea. After a while, his face became more grimaced. Those colorful clusters of clouds were extremely poisonous. And among them, the purple one was the most dangerous. Shi Yang's soul consciousness couldn't even stand it. The poison of that cloud could stick on the wisps of soul consciousness to enter his soul altar. It seemed to be able to attack the soul altar. He hurried to urge the co-soul, using the heaven flame to create a flaming barrier to prevent the poison from entering his soul altar. Those colorful clusters of smoke came from the evaporating mist of the sea. It was like something extremely noxious was hiding under the sea and releasing the toxins. The location of Blood Devil he had sensed was also under the sea, which made Shi Yang more anxious and down. He was sure that Blood Devil's group was under this sea. Although he didn't know what they were dealing with, he knew that their situation wasn't favorable. "Don't use your soul consciousness," shouted Shi Yang. Zhuorsha shivered like a bird perching on a curved branch of a tree. Her small face paled as she spoke with fear. "The soul consciousness can't bear it, either." Shi Yang darkened his face, looking at the sea underneath. His brows knitted tightly. There's a sea inside the space tunnel. It was a new experience for him, though. He didn't know if this sea was formed naturally or if someone had set it up with a particular purpose. However, he could confirm that something really perilous was hiding under the sea. Otherwise, Blood Devil's group wouldn't be restrained down there. "What should we do now?" asked Zhuorsha. Shi Yang kept silent, releasing his soul consciousness one more time. This time, he didn't dare to investigate those toxic clusters of smoke but sneaked into the sea. SSSSSS. Shi Yang took a breath of cold air. He was pale. He couldn't help but scream. "The sea water's freezing. My soul consciousness can't stand it. F***CK. What the heck is this F***king place?" Hearing him cursing in fear, Zhuorsha's small face wore a grimace. She didn't dare to release her soul consciousness. She looked at him uneasily. "Why do I feel everything is wrong here?" "Yeah, you're right," Shi Yang sighed. "Before we figure out how, we shouldn't do anything rashly. Don't use your soul consciousness, either. Stay away from any unusual things. The sea water, the colorful smokes. Stay away from them. Those things can kill you." Our enemies must have absolute confidence as they had brought Blood Devil's group here. They must think that Blood Devil's group couldn't wiggle out of this place and that they will die eventually. His mind was clear now. Blood Devil and the others were at incipient God realm. If they were moved here, the one who did that apparently thought that this area could confine even incipient God realm experts, preventing them from using their supernatural powers. Even the mighty Blood Devil was confined undersea. If Shi Yang could investigate it easily, it would be unusual, though. Even the soul consciousness couldn't get through that sea water. No doubt we would die immediately if we dip our god body into the sea. Zhuorsha stuck her tongue out, her innocent face fearful. "Did my old man die?" "I don't know." Shi Yang was also confused and anxious. He frowned deeply. "For the time being, don't act recklessly. Let me check the situation first. We should walk around here to see if we can find an entrance." While talking, he held Zhuorsha's small and soft hand, gingerly moving above the sea and avoiding the colorful smokes. Moving around the sea, he found that it was enormous. After 1 hour, he hadn't gotten out of the sea's area yet. He couldn't find any entrance. Shi Yang felt his hands were tied. Thinking strenuously for a while, he found that he had no solution. Eventually, he made up his mind. He would need help from the ring spirit of the Bloodvein ring. He needed to know if it knew anything about this poisonous sea. He contacted the ring spirit immediately, telling it the situation in the hope of receiving some guidance. The ring spirit sent him a frightened soul message. Why did it appear here? Why does it still exist? Chapter 1048, Departed Spirit Jellyfish. Chapter 1048, Departed Spirit Jellyfish. From what Shi Yang experienced, the ring spirit was rarely surprised. As it acted differently this time, Shi Yang felt his heart sinking. He knew that the situation wasn't right. This enemy is hard to deal with. Its entire body contains extremely toxins. It eats other venomous or poisonous things to grow. It's the most dangerous creature in the universe. The ring spirit sounded pretty serious. You shouldn't mess with it. At your realm, you're not its opponent. Right at the beginning, the ring spirit told Shi Yang to give up on it. What is it? Shi Yang changed his face, but he was still persistent. It's called Departed Spirit Jellyfish. It's a unique living form from outer space. It doesn't have a skeleton. It's huge with viscous skin and flesh. This kind of space jellyfish has many holes in its body where it fumes smoke, which contains deadly toxins. The ring spirit explained slowly. When the departed spirit jellyfish appears in a star area, that star area will eventually fall into a deadly disaster. All the creatures will be poisoned to death. It used to appear before. It had finished 2 star areas and turned them into desolate, dead areas. Nothing survived. It usually lives in extremely cold seas. It won't leave the sea, but it will continuously release the toxic smokes. If any creature contacts those toxic smokes, it will be poisoned to death. Doesn't it have any weakness? Shi Yang was frightened. The incipient God realm experts can't resist it, either. You need to know what the power Upanishad that incipient God realm expert cultivates. The ring spirit sighed. If you've reached incipient God realm, you would have had a chance to finish it and you may receive a surprising benefit. Anyway, the other incipient God realm experts couldn't do anything to it. Why do you say so? It should be an expert who has fused with the origin, which is also the heaven flames. After he's reached incipient God realm, he can burn and refine it. If you want to refine it, you must burn the cold sea it's dwelling in. After that, you can attack its body directly. Besides the flames, we don't have any other option. The body of the departed spirit jellyfish is both liquid and solid. Even if it's torn apart, it can close the cut almost immediately. Its body is undying somehow. Physical attacks are not effective on it. Its toxins could enter the soul altar. Moreover, its soul is very odd. It's the combination of different souls and consciousness. When one soul is smashed, it can replicate another. Only an incipient God realm individual who cultivates fire power Upanishad can refine it directly. Only the ancient continents have the origin. However, in this vast universe, the ancient continents are extremely rare. Also, it's even rarer to see the warriors who could fuse the soul with the heaven flames of the origin. Almost none of them can reach incipient God realm, though. If you can find this kind of character, you shouldn't think about attacking departed spirit jellyfish. It's just tying yourself to trouble. You will be finished completely. Can the warrior cultivating space power at incipient God realm deal with it? Shi Yang tried to make it clearer. Someone cut space and threw your friends into the sea. The ring spirit was surprised. Although the expert who cultivates space power Upanishad at incipient God realm can't burn the jellyfish, he has the ability to protect himself. If you can find someone with space power Upanishad at incipient God realm, perhaps you can use the same method to rescue your friends from the space undersea. But you can't kill the departed spirit jellyfish. However, the warriors who cultivate space power Upanishad to incipient God realm are even rarer than incipient God realm experts with the flames of the origin. Pausing for a while, the ring spirit added, your enemy is this kind of expert. So, the existence at the same level may not be able to move the space he had cut off. This option is much more difficult. I think you can't do it. Shi Yang was worried. He couldn't stand listening to the ring spirit crossing off all the options anymore. You don't have any solution, do you? A solution? I have one, but it seems difficult. It depends on your effort. The ring spirit pondered. After a while, it gave Shi Yang a shaking solution. How do I do it? You still need to find an expert at incipient God realm who has fused with the origin. It's almost impossible for ordinary people. But if it's you, you will have a chance. What's that searching method? Come to the fountainhead of powers Upanishads. The ones who have fused with the flames of the origin can visit the fountainhead of powers Upanishads too. If you have good fortune, you can meet the incipient God realm experts from other star areas. If the other knows about the departed spirit jellyfish, he or she will cross the star area to get here. I told you. Even to those kinds of existences, the departed spirit jellyfish is enough to make their hearts beat faster. Is it good for him? Big benefits. They will move, knowing the precondition that they know about the magical effects of the departed spirit jellyfish. All right, let me try. Go to the fountainhead of power Upanishad and search in the area where the fire power Upanishad is the most turbulent. You don't need to mind the other areas. Got it. After he was done talking with the ring spirit, he lingered for a while above the cold sea. Suddenly, he pulled Zworsha's hand and took her out of this place, returning through the space tunnel. What are you doing? Giving up? Zworsha was so surprised as she couldn't explain his deed. Her small hand struggled, trying to get rid of his grip. She told him bravely, I want to save them. This place isn't good to linger in. Perhaps, there's some trap around that the enemy has set up before. If we are exposed, we don't even have a chance to think about the solution. Shi Yang didn't mind Zworsha wiggling. He just tightened his grip and pulled her away. We will find a solution after we get out of here. Of course, I won't just stand and stare. Listening to him, Zworsha calmed down. The two of them returned to the meteor where they had found the remains of the holy beast Black Tortoise. They got inside the meteor where Shi Yang took a deep breath and spoke to Zworsha, I need to cultivate for a while right here. You shouldn't disturb me. Zworsha looked at him with surprise. Do you have any plan? Yeah, I have a plan. We have a tiny chance, but we must try anyway. Shi Yang nodded. Zworsha didn't say more. She sat down in front of him tenderly and obediently. In the next moment, she found Shi Yang's body shake a little bit. Her beautiful eyes brightened up and didn't stop looking Shi Yang even for just a blink. She suddenly covered her mouth to not let herself scream in fear. She found that after Shi Yang had shaken for a while, his soul seemed to leave his body. Shi Yang sitting in front of her now was just a body without any soul energy fluctuations. This finding filled Zworsha with fear as she didn't know the reason. Her eyes became dull. Zworsha remembered his advice. She didn't dare to bother him or create any commotion. She just sat and watched him cautiously. Although she didn't know why Shi Yang was doing this strange course of action, she knew Shi Yang was defenseless at this moment. If someone attacked him, he couldn't do anything to resist. Zworsha understood that he trusted her utterly. That was why he had deliberately entered such a vulnerable state. Zworsha was touched and frightened at the same time. She made up her mind to protect Shi Yang in his strange condition with her best efforts. She must not let anyone disturb him. In the magical fountainhead of power Upanishad, two souls like the ignis fatuus were bobbing. They were Shi Yang's host soul and co-soul. Every time he had entered this magical space, he appeared in this same particular area, not missed by even an inch. When he was at original God realm, the area that his two souls could access was limited. After he had reached ethereal God realm, his soul energy was increased massively, so he could move to a larger area. He started to explore the strange territory. He thought about the departed spirit jellyfish. The more he thought, the more anxious he became. From what the ring spirit told him and the current location of the departed spirit jellyfish, Shi Yang vaguely knew the conspiracy of the Dark Shadow clan and the God clan. The departed spirit jellyfish stayed inside the space passage, which connected Agate Star area and God Star area of the God clan. With its special features, once the departed spirit jellyfish came to any star area, it always became the biggest nightmare of the entire place. The God Clan and the Dark Shadow Clan had set up the jellyfish here. Shi Yang now knew their purpose. From their point of view, if Shi Yang was a member of the God Clan or the Dark Shadow Clan, it would be much easier to invade Agate Star area and capture the warriors and forces of the entire star area with the jellyfish there. It would be the best scenario. However, if they met a stiff resistance or even failure, the price would be the significant loss of the God Clan and Dark Shadow Clan. Would it be much worse when the things they could claim couldn't make up the loss? Could it be a better solution? If their operation didn't go well, God Clan and Dark Shadow Clan would send the departed spirit jellyfish to Agate Star area with their brutal and cruel deeds. What could it do? Shi Yang felt the hair on his nape rising. Releasing the departed spirit jellyfish to Agate Star area would make the toxic creature release poisonous smoke that would poison the forces in Agate Star area to death. Later on, the entire Agate Star area would have no survivors. After that, they would move the departed spirit jellyfish and Agate Star area would become a territory of the God Clan and Dark Shadow Clan. From then on, they would be free to exploit any materials without facing any stubborn resistance. They would be able to claim everything in this star area. As Shi Yang understood the conspiracy of the God Clan and Dark Shadow Clan, his heart sank to the bottom. Too evil. To invade a star area, they didn't hesitate to kill all the races and creatures of the entire star area. Billions of lives were going to be extinguished. This was too cruel and heartless, which was much more malicious than the most malevolent character. Finally, Shi Yang knew the reason why the other creatures in the universe always hated and went against the God Clan. He understood that he must defeat the departed spirit jellyfish. Otherwise, creatures in Agate Star area would receive a deadly catastrophe. No one would be able to save them. Shi Yang rushed. He had moved around the fountainhead of Power Upanishad for a long time, but he hadn't found any soul like him in this place. The vast universe had so many star areas with countless experts. However, just a few of them could enter this special place. He knew that it would depend on his fortune, but he was rushing now. He had to find an incipient God Realm expert who cultivated Fire Power Upanishad and had fused with the origin. Shi Yang began to fly as fast as he could. The two souls moved like two shooting stars trying to locate the area of the Fire's Power Upanishads. After an unknown time, his souls shook and sent out a vibe when he saw the gathering point of the Fire's Power Upanishad. He hurried to approach that area. Chapter 1049, The Fountainhead of Powers Upanishad. Chapter 1049, The Fountainhead of Powers Upanishad. Fire's Power Upanishads had many forms and each form had its own distinctive features. Relatively, there were many areas of Fire's Power Upanishads in the Fountainhead of Power Upanishads. The different areas would have different Fire's Power Upanishad, which could also depend on the realm of the warriors. For example, warriors at Original God Realm, Ethereal God Realm, and Incipient God Realm had big differences between the Fire's Power Upanishad they had obtained. When they cultivated in the Fountainhead of Power Upanishad, the areas suitable to them were different. Low Realm warriors found the area that suited their realms while the High Realm warriors could visit the area of more powerful and exquisite Fire's Power Upanishads. The area where different Fire's Power Upanishads were weaving around that Shi Yang had just found was suitable for Ethereal God Realm experts to study. The two clusters of fire that looked like weak ghost flames crossed the areas of the Thunder and Windstorm Power Upanishads to gather at an area of the Fire's Power Upanishads. That area was a sea of fire with clusters of fires flying around like red ribbons. Each bunch of fire seemed to have subtle changes all the time, which expressed their wild, brutal and hot features. The warriors who had fused with heaven flames could send their souls into those fireballs. As the fires were changing, they slowly tasted and studied the mysterious meanings of this class of power, which strengthened and advanced their realms. Although Shi Yang's co-soul had fused with heaven flames, he didn't cultivate Fire Power Upanishad. When he reached this area, his host soul couldn't adapt well to the environment, which made him uncomfortable. Anyway, his co-soul felt relaxed and safe in this area. Ah! Shi Yang exhaled and his two souls turned into the shape of his body, looking in the same direction. There were two souls moving in that area. They flew swiftly like flaming meteors. Shi Yang could distinguish between the two souls. One was a man and the other was a woman. They both looked elegant and beautiful. However, those two souls weren't harmonious. They seemed to be arguing over something. Apparently, the graceful woman was in the lower hand. She circled, trying to get rid of the sea of fire. She looked flustered and hurried. Meanwhile, that man was laughing evilly. Neither slow nor fast, he released his soul magnetic field, blocking the area and preventing the woman from running away. It was not the first time Shi Yang had entered the fountainhead of power Upanishads. He knew that if the soul wanted to leave this place, it had to stay away from the areas where the powers Upanishads were gathering. Then, it could leave this magical place immediately. The female soul wanted to leave the fire power Upanishads gathering point first and then leave this space. The fountainhead of power Upanishad was the most mysterious place in this universe. Warriors who had fused with the Origin's heaven flames could send their souls here to study. Those warriors could come from every corner of the universe. However, they all came to this place. When their souls came back to their bodies, they would return to a different area. The woman just needed to fly away from the area of the fire's power Upanishads so that she could return to her body. No matter how strong her enemy was, he couldn't cross the entire star area to chase after her. But if she couldn't escape the gathering point of the fire's power Upanishad, her soul couldn't return to her body. It would be really difficult. Shi Yang stayed by the edge of that area and observed. His soul tried to sense. He could hear the male soul teasing the woman. In this place, they didn't use verbal language to communicate. They used the soul to contact each other, which was much more convenient than talking. Only the souls could listen to such a conversation. Running A. Stay here, girl. Let's have soul intercourse. Shall we have fun together? If you can please me, I won't smash your soul and take your wisp of origin. We can stay in this magical area like a happy couple and enjoy those indescribable happy moments. Won't it be all about pleasure and joy? The sounds of the male soul expanded like a sound wave that was sent to every corner. He looked so excited and aroused, his handsome face filled with smiles. Get lost. The woman didn't agree. She appeared to be frightened and agitated. I will cultivate my way and you should cultivate your way. I don't want to have anything to do with you. Shi Yang was surprised. He continued to sense quietly. After a while, he knew that they weren't the one he wanted to find. Those people were from the different star areas. Since they had fused with the flame of the origin, they met each other by chance in this area. They were likely the outstanding characters in their areas. The souls could do magical sexual intercourse, which was rumored to be mysterious and even better than physical intercourse. The man had an evil thought, obviously, and his realm was higher. He wanted to stay in this special area and have some soul intimacy, which was considered the most magical pleasure, with that woman. Meanwhile, the woman didn't want it. She wanted to get rid of him and leave. Unfortunately, the man's realm was higher than hers and he had set up a soul barrier, which prevented the woman from flying away. That man should be at second sky of ethereal god realm while the woman was at first sky of ethereal god realm. Although they could be famous in their areas, they weren't the ones Shi Yang wanted. Observing for a while, as Shi Yang was hurried to find an incipient god realm expert, he didn't want to poke his nose into other people's business. He just wanted to defeat the departed spirit jellyfish as soon as possible, so he prepared to leave already. Where are you from? Haha, I don't care what F*Kingstar area you're from. It's your honor to do soul intercourse with me. If I feel good, I will go to your star area to find you. I'm from the Ascot family of the God Clan. Our God Clan rules the whole universe. Receiving favor from me is your honor. Behave. The God Clansman called himself Spot. He smiled arrogantly. God Clan? You universe robbers. Who likes you? Hearing Spot reveal his identity, the woman didn't get happy. She got enraged. You God Clan is a malignant tumor of the vast universe. You should be eradicated. Spot darkened his face. How dare you wish my clan's demise? My clan has invaded half of this vast universe. My clan will rule the whole universe. It's your fortune that I like you. If you don't behave, Don't blame me. I'm not going to obey even if I have to die, shouted the woman. Shi Yang heard the man saying he was from the God clan while he was hurrying to go. He halted. Bro, you shouldn't poke your nose into the other's business. There are some things you can't participate in. Spot seemed to find him earlier, sending over a soul message. Well, you should take the chance to flee when I'm still busy, or else, I wouldn't be afraid of smashing your soul first and then taking in your flaming origin. Help me. The woman struggled. She wasn't free to look around, so she didn't recognize Shi Yang. Hearing Spot, she reacted, shouted, and called for help. Shi Yang's thoughts flickered. His two ghostly flames slowly turned into miniatures of his real body. They swayed, flying towards the gathering point of fires. You're from the Ascot family of the God clan? Shi Yang sent his soul message. You know my title but still dare to approach. You have guts. Spot swayed, his figure naturally handsome. He arched his long eyebrows, showing his arrogant face. Oh, you made the flaming origin your co-soul. Good though. You just have first sky of ethereal god realm, but you dare interfere with me. Want to die? Shi Yang wore a faint face, didn't answer him, and just looked at the two of them. The figure that the woman turned into was just as big as a hand. However, she had delicate facial features accompanied by a sexy body. Her long hair cascaded like a waterfall. She looked like a fairy in people's dreams. No wonder why Spot of the God clan had unleashed his animal instincts and forced her to do soul intercourse with him. You have only first sky of ethereal god realm? Hearing Spot, the woman felt disappointed. She sighed, talking begrudgingly. You should go. You can't help me. Don't get yourself involved. The heaven flames could absorb each other. This rule was also applicable to the creatures that had fused with the flaming origin. In this magical space, as long as he could smash the other's soul, he could take the flaming origin that the other had absorbed and merge it with his own soul. So if Shi Yang met any creature in this marvelous fountainhead of power Upanishads, it wasn't always something good to celebrate. If the realms weren't too far from each other, he could be safe relatively. But if their realms had a big gap, the stronger would have malicious thoughts. He would destroy the soul of the weaker warrior to take the flaming origin, which would strengthen his own soul. Of course, it wasn't really good that the warrior should absorb more flaming origin. He had to find a suitable aura to take in. Otherwise, it would bring him the counter effect. When the woman heard that Shi Yang had only first sky of ethereal god realm, she assumed that he wasn't an equal opponent of Spot. If he got involved, Spot would kill him and take his origin. Let me check whether your flaming origin is suitable for me or not. Spot smiled. A wave of subtle soul energy like a net extended from him towards Shi Yang's co-soul. Get lost. Shi Yang's soul flickered. An icy cold aura arose from his co-soul, which was chilled to the bone. It had a faint blue color of falling snowflakes. Spot was chilled. He frowned, contemplating for seconds. Suddenly, he screamed in fear, looking at Shi Yang. He couldn't hide his fright, though. Shi Yang's co-soul contained 10 different auras of flaming origin. It wasn't pure at all. Although Shi Yang was trying his best to hide it, Spot could still sense something. He was struck hard. You. How many people have you killed here? Spot's eyes showed his fright. His soul shivered as he wanted to retreat. Forget it. I'm having a bad day seeing you here. I'll leave that woman to you. He thought that the 10 auras of flaming origin in Shi Yang's soul were the result of Shi Yang killing and robbing warriors with the flaming origin in this magical place. He had done that himself, though. After many years wandering around in this place, he had just killed 2 souls to take 2 different flames. As Shi Yang's soul had 10 different flames, Spot thought that he was incomparably evil. Despite Shi Yang's low realm, Spot was still frightened. He knew he'd encountered a bad guy. The woman was aghast. She looked at Shi Yang disbelievingly as she felt so chilled. She knew how dangerous and fearful Spot was, and such a character had to retreat seeing Shi Yang, a warrior with a lower realm. To leave her to him, it was. The woman instinctively assumed that Shi Yang was even countless more times brutal than Spot. She felt despair crawling on her body. In her eyes, if Spot were a wolf, Shi Yang was the existence at the level of a brutal dragon. Chapter 1050, Reverse in Just a Flash. Chapter 1050, Reverse in Just a Flash. After Spot said that, he immediately left. The woman felt helplessly disappointed. She thought she had just escaped the wolf den and now, she fell into a tiger's mouth. Looking at Shi Yang, she felt her scalp tingling. She had the same thought with Spot. She assumed that the 10 heaven flames in Shi Yang's origin were the results of his hunt of experts. She wasn't sure how malicious Shi Yang was. Even Spot had to run away despite having a higher realm. How could she escape this disaster with her terrible luck? If you are a member of the Ascot family from God Clan, you shouldn't leave. Shi Yang's soul suddenly changed. Layers of blue flame with the icy aura dashed towards Spot. Spot was about to run. His face changed as his soul turned into a flame dashing toward the edge of the fire's power Upanishads area. Shi Yang's ruthlessness terrified Spot. With one level different between their realms, he was haughty enough to attack Spot. In Spot's mind, Shi Yang was that sort of skilled assassin. Spot didn't have the thought of engaging in a fight. He just wanted to leave here as soon as possible. The icy cold flame glowed in blue halo. In the beginning, it was just like a small flame. In just a blink, it expanded massively. The dim blue flame burned ahead of Spot. The fire suddenly burst out radiantly with the chilly to the bone aura that filled the area and froze it. Spot's soul was frozen. He discolored, talking with rage. "Dude, don't be too harsh. I've left that girl to you. What else do you want?" While talking, he urged his flaming energy. 2 flames shot out from the pupils of his soul. The flames twisted like dragons patrolling around him to wash away the cold energy Shi Yang that had released. A Spot was surprised. He figured out that the flame he had condensed could burn down Shi Yang's barrier easily. He stopped and thought. Shi Yang's main power wasn't fire. He didn't cultivate the heaven flames, which were fused, making his co-soul. Moreover, he wasn't good at soul fighting. So, when he released the extremely cold energy, he couldn't harm Spot. Frowning, he continued to gather more energy. Another dark blue flame shot out with his soul consciousness, covering Spot. This time, Spot hovered at his spot, opened his mouth to spurt out an orange-red fireball. That fireball turned into a flaming phoenix shortly, which then extinguished Shi Yang's blue flame directly. Spot grinned fiendishly. "Oh well, empty vessels make the most sound. You mother****, you startled me." He was able to simply dissolve Shi Yang's 2 attacks. Spot didn't want to leave anymore. He laughed evilly. "No wonder why you've made the flaming origin your co-soul. Your 10 heaven flames aren't harmonious, though. Well, such a scum. I did think that you were really tough." The woman was dumbstruck, looking at Shi Yang oddly. She also thought that Shi Yang was powerful. Otherwise, Spot wouldn't have to leave that fast. However, she could never imagine that Shi Yang's attacks were dissolved easily. At this moment, as Spot didn't want to leave anymore, she vaguely understood something. Looking at Shi Yang, the woman had a contempt look. "You're not strong enough and your realm isn't too profound. You dared to make a mess. Oh, you brought yourself into deadly trouble." The woman was enraged, glaring at Shi Yang. "You scared Spot. You just needed to stand there and pose your hotshots appearance. Spot would run away. You and I would have been able to escape this. Why do you want to show off like that? Now your weak competence is exposed. You've dragged me into bad luck with you. You moron." The woman cursed Shi Yang under her breath. "Wow, 10 different heaven flames of the origin. Haha, I'm lucky this time. Not only have I found a beautiful girl to do soul intercourse with, but I also get the flames. Haha, I'm so happy." Spot laughed excitedly, approaching Shi Yang. The flaming phoenix he had spurted out spread the wings and made beautiful curves in the air, releasing waves of fire and burning heat. The fire phoenix came close. It enlarged. The bird wings with a dazzling halo now turned into fire snakes, which looked indeed beautiful and scary. They were the attacks that could burn down the soul. Shi Yang's co-soul changed again, summoning another heaven flame. With the power of the world-extinguishing thunder flame, the energy released was a thunderbolt. The flame was now the key to unlock scorching thunder and lightning. All were aimed at that flaming phoenix. The blinding halo of the impact expanded in this magical place. The flaming phoenix meandered. Its feathers shot out brutal fires. It wasn't afraid of the energy of the world-extinguishing thunder flame as the bird crossed the layers of lightning to approach Shiyang. This flaming aura has thunderbolts. Awesome. Really awesome. Spot was so excited and he screamed, if the warrior who cultivate thunderbolt power Upanishad got this kind of heaven flame to fuse with it, he would achieve big things. What a pity you morons can't promote its supernatural abilities. Spot laughed. His soul changed when the flames flew out of his eyes, which were really sharp like metal with the terrifying fire energy. Shiyang changed his attacks continually. He had used all 10 kinds of heaven flames. However, he was still in the lower hand. He had to move continually to avoid Spot's vehement attacks. The 10 heaven flames with the aura of the origin had entirely merged with his co-soul. Anyway, Shiyang had never put any effort to cultivate the co-soul. His understanding of the origin wasn't deep enough, so his attacks were limited. He couldn't promote the true power of the 10 heaven flames to the upper limit. The weakness of having blended, impure powers was revealed at this moment. Meanwhile, Spot's flaming origin was honest and terrifyingly pure. Despite Shiyang's different flames, he had to continually back off. It was the first time Shiyang used the co-soul to fight. However, he couldn't really use the abilities of different flames. He knew his mistake now. He was sitting on a pile of treasures, but he didn't know how to use them. The woman saw him struggling hard, her face more disdain. She hesitated for a while, looking around. She was startled realizing that she should take this chance when Spot was concentrating on Shiyang. She sneakily flew backward, approaching the edge of the gathering point of fire's power Upanishad. She didn't mind whether Shiyang could survive or not. In her eyes, Shiyang was a moron. It was obvious that his competence was just trash and he dared to provoke Spot with it. Eventually, he had to take such a result. She knew Shiyang wasn't Spot's equal opponent, so she had to save her life first. At first, she moved slowly and then accelerated, turning into a tender shooting fire to escape. Haha, well, I've always laid my eye on you. Don't think about running away. Spot smiled contentedly. Origin and the beauty, I want to have both. Stay here and watch. After I'm done with this stupid boy, I'll have fun with you. 10 flames shot out from Spot's pupils, which had triggered some magical powers of this area. Each of the flames started to set up the fire barrier added with Spot's soul. When the woman barged into a barrier, she felt like she was hitting a cotton cluster, which prevented her from getting away. She turned around, glaring at Spot with rage. Pondering for a while, she made up her mind and shouted, "Hey dumbass, you and I should attack him. We will join hands. Even if we have to die, we must skin him." The woman was indignant. She didn't think about leaving anymore. She turned around, her succulent lips trembling. She opened her mouth and spurted out a dazzling fireball. This fireball was light purple with marvelous fire. It revolved in the sky, making a beautiful purple curve and aiming at Spot's back. Shiyang looked at her and felt things were getting more interesting. Using the co-soul as the source of energy to fight wasn't familiar to him and he couldn't use the stronger ability of the flaming origin. As he had used the co-soul to fight, he had recognized his mistakes. So, even if he wasted more time, he couldn't gain anything. Thus, he decided to end this fight. He began to use the host soul. Thoughts changed. While the co-soul was still engaging in the battle with Spot, Shiyang's host soul took action. A thought with the power of the desolate death intention grumblingly gushed out from his host soul like a disastrous flood. The will of death that could disorder the soul overflew everywhere from him as the core. It swarmed towards Spot in just a blink of an eye. While fighting with Shiyang's co-soul, Spot suddenly felt fear. He was struck, his soul twisting and shivering. Abruptly, he got a desperate feeling that he would die here. Instantaneously, he knew what had just happened. He discolored in fright. Your host soul is much stronger than your co-soul. Spot deeply regretted. He finally knew that Shi Yang hadn't used his real competence to fight with him yet. The co-soul was apparently Shi Yang's worst ability. And Spot now knew the reason why Shi Yang didn't consider the flaming origin his main power Upanishad. It wasn't that Shi Yang was stupid. He just had a better option. He regretted that he would have a big trouble this time. He shouted, "I'm a member of the Ascot family in the God clan. My soul is recorded in the clan. If I die, my clan will know it immediately. They will hunt you down. No matter where you are, you can't escape our Ascot family's pursuit." Spot looked strong, but he was weak as he started to use his strong background to threaten other people. Shi Yang didn't change his visage, talking calmly. "I'm going to kill the member of your Ascot family. If I didn't know you were from this family, I wouldn't interfere with someone else's business." Shi Yang's power Upanishad changed the second time. Swoosh. A space blade condensed, slashing towards Spot's soul. Being invaded by the death power Upanishad, his power Upanishad was disordered. At this moment, he didn't have any means to resist. As he had concentrated on the battle with Shi Yang's co-soul, his soul was defenseless. Swish. Spot's soul was halved by the space blade. The space blade continued to cut him. After several seconds, Spot's soul was minced into many pieces. Spot died at his spot. The woman was turning around to assist little Moran Shi Yang, seeing that she was discolored in fright with a deep, fearful impression. Chapter 1051, The Talkative Woman. Chapter 1051, The Talkative Woman. Spot was dead. His soul was minced. Traces of his existence in this world gradually vanished. The woman was scared. She dully looked at Shi Yang as fear rose higher in her heart. Shi Yang was in the lower realm, but he could burst out and kill Spot in just a blink of an eye. Now, she thought that Spot wasn't wrong. Shi Yang was actually that sort of brutal and heartless character. He wasn't the little dumbass that she'd imagined. He was actually a bad murderous star. The woman regretted so much. She shivered as she didn't know how to deal with him. While she was so frightened, a red-orange flame flew out from the remnant of Spot's soul. That flame was palm-sized, bouncing continually. It had life energy fluctuation. Shi Yang was surprised. He looked at that small flame, astounded. He knew that the flame was also a wisp of the origin, which had fused with Spot's soul. After Spot was killed, it had escaped his confinement. Now it was an available flame with intelligence that he could absorb. However, Shi Yang hadn't reacted timely. The magical red-orange flame bounced for a while as if it was very afraid of Shi Yang. Shortly after, the flame flew out, entering the woman's soul. Shi Yang was dumbstruck, his face angry. He was about to take in that flaming origin. However, that flame had life, so it could choose its master. Apparently, the flame had chosen the woman, who was watching aside. She was also startled. She was dull as she received the big, sudden fortune. She immediately became restlessly fearful. Her face changed dramatically. She instinctively assumed that Shi Yang was harsh and ruthless. As he could gather 10 wisps of flaming origin in this area, he must have killed a lot of experts. This sort of character would have an intense, obsessive desire for the spoils. She was petrified. She had taken in the spoils that belonged to Shi Yang. How could she not be frightened? I didn't want to take it. It came to me. The woman was frightened. She instinctively moved backward. I just know how to take the flaming origin. I don't know how to extract it. I can't return it to you. Please. Don't hurt me. She was so frightened as she worried that Shi Yang would kill her. Witnessing Spot's tragic death, she knew that she wasn't Shi Yang's equal opponent. Even if she told him her strong background, she couldn't stop him anyway. Spot was a member of the Ascot family from the God clan. However, he was killed after he had revealed his identity. Could she dodge this Kalpa? The woman was so scared. She didn't dare to move. She was so hurried and anxious that it looked like she was about to cry. Please don't do that. Even if I die, I won't do soul intercourse with you. I have a lover already. Shi Yang was surprised. He didn't know whether to cry or laugh. He looked at her, talking impatiently. I killed Spot not to claim you. I don't have time and effort to waste here with you. Do what you need to do. The woman was startled. She carefully assessed him to see if he was serious or not. She looked at Shi Yang, hurried to back off. As soon as Shi Yang made a move, she was going to parry with her max force. However, Shi Yang didn't do anything or release any strange energy. The woman slowly moved backward until she reached the edge of the place. Seeing Shi Yang hovering idle, she leaped out of the area of Fire's Power Upanishads. Her face was filled with happy smiles. She knew she was safe. Outside the area of Fire's Power Upanishads, as soon as she wanted, she could return to her body and escape the fountainhead of Power Upanishad. This time, she thought she had to endure a big kalpa. She hadn't expected to be safe. But now, in the end, she even got a flame that suited her power, which was an immense benefit to her realm and life form. She was so happy. Leaving the area of Power Upanishad, she knew she was safe now. The stress and fear she had were washed away. She gathered her guts and shouted at Shi Yang, who was still in the area of the Fire's Power Upanishad. Hey, you're dumb, you know that. Now, she wasn't afraid that Shi Yang could threaten her. Her mischievous character burst out. Her beautiful and witted eyes rolled and teased, you're dumb, really. The 10 wisps of flaming origin you have collected can't mingle with each other. And if you have taken that flame one step earlier, it wouldn't have escaped. I wonder how you have collected those 10 flames. You're too dumb. Shi Yang was surprised listening to the woman teasing. He gave a reluctant smile, waving his hand impatiently. Don't be wordy. Go away. The woman kept smiling. You can't do anything to me now. Why should I be hurried? I'm telling you, you're in big trouble. The Ascot family of the God clan is very strong. Each member of the main lineage will save 1 wisp of their soul in some hidden place. Once one of them dies, they will know who the murderer is. The God clan in the vast universe is the overlord. No matter where you're from, they can track you down. So, you've got bad luck this time. Thank you for reminding me, but I don't want to waste my saliva talking to you. Shi Yang furrowed his brows, flying out of the area of Fire's Power Upanishads. He released his soul consciousness to find another place of more profound powers Upanishads. He was trying to find incipient God realm existences he needed. Aren't you here to cultivate? Asked the woman, seeing him flying away. You haven't surpassed ethereal God realm yet. This area keeps the subtle Fire's Power Upanishads, which are much suitable for you. What makes you get out of there? For your information, there aren't any more suitable Fire's Power Upanishads for you to cultivate besides this place. If you want to cultivate, you should stay here. Listening to her, Shi Yang was touched. Are you familiar with this area? The woman nodded arrogantly. Of course. I often cultivate here, so I know it well. So, do you know any area of Fire's Power Upanishads that is suitable for incipient God realm experts to cultivate? Shi Yang hastened to ask her. Since I have saved you once and gave you that wisp of flaming origin, tell me what you know. The flaming origin came to me. You didn't give it to me. I don't owe you anything. The woman pouted as if she didn't appreciate his deed. Pausing for a while, she said relaxedly, Anyway, you aren't like Spot. You didn't want to harass me because of my beauty. For this point, I can tell you a place. Please. But your realm isn't high. You can't cultivate in that area. Why do you need to go there? I want to find an expert who has fused with the flaming origin and is at incipient God realm in any star area. I'm in a hurry. What do you want? Do you want to die? Your soul has 10 wisps of different flaming origin. If you meet such a character, you will be killed even before you have a chance to talk. They would kill you to take the origin. Are you really stupid? The woman was astounded. As Shi Yang was so worried, he was enraged. You're too talkative. Can you stop talking nonsense? Just show me the way. You don't need to mind anything else. I won't tell you. She snorted as if she was also angry. She talked to him arrogantly, There are so many men chasing after me in my star area. I didn't give them a glance. You bastard dare to say I'm talkative. Show me a grim face, eh? You don't have a bit of the manner of a gentleman. I'm not going to help you. Shi Yang was bewildered, cursing under his breath. Obviously, this woman was indulged since she was a little girl. Although she was young, she had reached first sky of ethereal god realm and fused with the flaming origin. In any star area, she could be an outstanding character. Moreover, she was really pretty and her background force was also influential, perhaps. Naturally, she had developed her classy personality. As she felt Shi Yang couldn't intimidate her, she exposed her real self. The manner of a haughty lady appeared. Shi Yang felt reluctant as he knew it was impossible to suppress this woman when he had left the area of Fire's Power Upanishads. She could leave this area at any minute. That was why she wasn't afraid of him anymore. Talking reasonably to women was something that gives people a headache. Shi Yang sighed, speaking curtly. All right, please. May I ask the beautiful lady over there the direction to the area of Fire's Power Upanishads that is suitable for the incipient God Realm experts? Now you talk. The lady grinned contentedly. But I'm kind enough to remind you this. You will die if you go there. Yeah, right. I don't want to live anymore. Please show me the way so I can get myself killed there. Shi Yang felt so annoyed. This woman was too talkative. She had said many things, but it wasn't what he wanted to know. He hated that he couldn't scold her directly. Oh hey, why do you need to find an incipient God Realm expert? To give him a chance as big as the sky. Shi Yang said through his gritted teeth. Ah, what kind of chance is that? Can you tell me more? I'm interested. It has nothing to do with you. No. I can help you find an incipient God Realm expert who has fused with Heaven Flame of the Origin. The place I told you hasn't received an incipient God Realm expert for dozens or hundreds of years. If you want to go there, you have to wait for many years to see one. But if I agree to help you, it will be so fast. The woman stopped for a while and then said arrogantly, my teacher is an incipient God Realm expert who has fused with the Heaven Flame. If the thing you say could help her, I can ask her to meet you. Shi Yang was shaken. He pondered for a while and then said, inside a space tunnel in our star area has the departed spirit jellyfish. If your teacher knows about this creature, she would be interested in it. Departed spirit jellyfish? The woman's beautiful eyes sparkled. She hurried to scream. I know it. I've heard about it from my teacher. Your place has the jellyfish. Are you sure? Nonsense. That thing could invade my star area. If I can't find an incipient God Realm expert with the Heaven Flame of the Origin, our star area will receive an apocalypse that leaves no survivor. Otherwise, why would I hurry to enter this place? Wait for me. I'll come back shortly. Wait for me. I'm going to bring my teacher here. It will take half a month back. I will come back. Wait for me. Listening to him, the woman looked hurried, but she was still talkative. After that, her soul faded as she disappeared little by little. Chapter 1052, A Whole Entity. Chapter 1052, A Whole Entity. Shi Yang was happy immediately. It was like he was lost in a jungle that he couldn't find the way out of, but by the end of the day, he saw a village. The talkative girl became excited from hearing about the departed spirit jellyfish. She looked thrilled even more than Shi Yang. She left the fountainhead of power Upanishads shortly after. Shi Yang knew that he had to wait here for a while. He contemplated for a while before returning to the area of the Fire's Power Upanishads, hovering in there. After a fight with Spot, Shi Yang knew that he hadn't invested in the co-soul yet. Thus, he couldn't promote the abilities of the co-soul. His co-soul was formed by his soul and the origin of Grace Mainland. Grace Mainland was a rare ancient continent in the vast sea of stars. Of course, its origin was compelling and magical. If ordinary people got it, they would invest their whole life effort to study it. Anyway, Shi Yang knew that he couldn't do that. His host soul had more mysterious and mighty abilities. Space, death and life, and star power Upanishads were the rare and peak powers Upanishads in this universe. Shi Yang didn't feel anything wrong with investing in these powers. However, he was wrong that he hadn't done anything with his co-soul. As he had to wait here for a while, he decided to sink into the fire's power Upanishads area and use his co-soul as the foundation to learn the mysteries of the flames. The co-soul had 10 different heaven flames. While hovering in this magical area, Shi Yang slowly understood. The co-soul contained 10 different heaven flames. Although they stayed together, their auras were identifiable. 10 heaven flames circling the co-soul released different energy fluctuations. Some of them were similar, as if they could fuse with each other one more time. Shi Yang calmed his mind, sending his consciousness on the flames to study. Among the 10 heaven flames of the origin, the vermilion bird true flame, the earth flame, and the purgatory true flame all had scorching auras, which had a similar frequency of energy fluctuations. They seemed to be able to blend with each other one more time. Shi Yang made up his mind, sending his soul consciousness to the 3 heaven flames with the same characteristics. He tried to concentrate his mind to begin studying them. Gradually, Shi Yang found that the 3 heaven flames' fluctuations happened as if they were connecting the flames inside the fire's power Upanishads area. His soul felt something suddenly reflect in his heart. The auras of the 3 heaven flames were now like 3 threads, slowly approaching. Today, 2 halos flashed outside the area of the fire's power Upanishads. The light slowly transformed, creating the shapes of 2 women. A mischievous girl that looked like a little nymph with a small, elegant face had her body covered in a blurry dark red halo. She was agile but tender. The other was a beautiful woman in her 30s. She had a high updo hairstyle with a noble and refined makings. Her voluptuous body was covered by a blue halo, which exposed only her porcelain arms and a pair of mysterious deep eyes that showed her different indescribable emotions. "Master, he's over there," said the girl. "His dumb and his verbal language is vulgar. I don't know if he told me the truth. The departed spirit jellyfish is an ancient being in legends. Even you haven't seen it before. We don't have such fate to meet it. That man has 10 auras of the flaming origin. His flames aren't harmonious, though. I don't know what he thinks. He's shallow, I suppose. Little Faye, you said that when the soul of the godman called Spot vanished, the wisp of flaming origin proactively flew towards you. Is it true?" The noble, beautiful woman pondered for a while before asking. "Yes, of course, it's true. I didn't even move. That flame flew to me. Hee, I'm outstanding. It's normal that that flame likes me. What's strange here? Heaven flames have intellect. They know they should stay with strong warriors. From what you told me, that young man is much stronger than you. That heaven flame should have gone to him. It's strange, you see. Nah, he isn't strong. If he was strong enough, would he collect heaven flames with different features? I think he's just a dumbass. He knows nothing. Perhaps he comes from a low-level star area. If he came from a low-level star area, he wouldn't be able to cultivate to this level. And he wouldn't dare to kill Spot after knowing his identity. This man is extraordinary. The 2 women with different markings were whispering to each other while entering the area of Fire's power Upanishads. The elegant, beautiful woman glanced at Shi Yang from a far distance. She was shocked. Her face changed immediately. "Oh, that's how it is. What?" The girl didn't understand anything. The beautiful woman sighed weakly, looking at Shi Yang and her face admiring. "That kid is so lucky. What kind of luck? If he was lucky, why did that heaven flame leave him to enter my soul proactively?" The girl muttered in disagreement. "That heaven flame has intellect. It knows it would never have a chance to fuse with that man's soul. That's why it chose you." The woman shook her head, explaining. "It's because that young man's soul is a whole entity. I don't get it." The girl was bewildered. Wisps of flaming origin in this world come from ancient continents. Each ancient continent could give birth to different heaven flames. Warriors who have fused with the heaven flames like us have 2 shortcuts to make our living form perfect and increase our realms. The beautiful woman said softly, The first way is to use the heaven flames with the same aura. It's similar to what you and I are doing. We can search for the heaven flames in different star areas as long as they have the same features as our flames. When we fuse with them, our realms will be increased subtly and magically. Our souls will also evolve. You said that when you taught me. You said it's our best opportunity. The girl was still baffled. And now you're telling me we still have another method. The reason why I didn't tell you that because that method isn't suitable for you and me. So, I didn't teach you. The woman sighed and then continued, the ancient continent in our star area had disappeared for a long time. We don't know where the heaven flames it had created had gone. We are so lucky we have 2 of them. It's impossible to gather them all. She continued to explain, the second method is to gather all the heaven flames that the origin of an ancient continent had created. Although the auras and characteristics of the heaven flames from the same origin aren't harmonious, they can fuse with each other eventually even though it would take a lot of time. This kind of cultivating method is 1 level higher than our current method. Well, let's say it like this. Warriors like us would have to spend a lot of time and effort to gather the heaven flames with the same aura and features. Anyway, we will never reach the perfect state. Meanwhile, the warriors who could gather all the heaven flames that are from the same origin of an ancient continent could make their soul perfectly complete. They could have many incredible abilities. Pausing for a while, the beautiful woman sighed. That young man is the second type of warrior. The 10 different heaven flames in his body come from the same ancient continent. They have similar auras of the origin. Once he fuses with them completely, his soul will be perfect. His level was higher than ours right from the start. The heaven flame that came to you knows that the heaven flames in his body are a whole entity now. It wouldn't have room to grow. That was why it chose your soul to stay in. So he won't need any other flames of the origin? The girl vaguely got it. Of course. The route he has chosen is the second method I've told you, which is more reasonable and stable. He has successfully gathered all the heaven flames of an ancient continent. If he continues to gather the heaven flames of the other ancient continents, it's stupid. The dummy you say is much smarter and luckier than you. He knew his direction. It's not what you can imagine. Sigh, that kid is really lucky that he could gather all the heaven flame of the same ancient continent. He makes us envy him, indeed. The girl didn't talk more, her face dispirited. He's trying to fuse the flaming origin. He's heading to the utmost step by step. When he reaches incipient God realm, his attainment will surpass mine. The woman paused and then forced a smile. I do want to curse this guy. He's so lucky, but he has just wasted his fortune by making the heaven flames of the origin his co-soul. Does he know that for warriors with the heaven flames, gathering all 10 heaven flames from the same ancient continent is just a chance that we can't even dream of? God is unfair. The girl gritted her teeth. The 2 of them were talking to each other by the edge of the fire's power Upanishads with odd complexions. They didn't use intense soul energy, which would disturb Shiyang. Long time afterward, Shiyang suddenly woke up. His soul flickered when he saw that the 3 auras of the earth flame, the vermilion bird true flame, and the purgatory true flame were twisting with each other like a rope. Their auras seemed to gradually combine into one. He knew that it would take time for the 3 heaven flames to fuse into one entity. Anyway, he found someone coming and he remembered his purpose being here. He stopped his process and said, "You are here." The beautiful woman and the girl immediately flew over. When they looked at him, their faces were a little odd as if they hated that they couldn't refine iron into steel. Shiyang hadn't recognized it and he just said simply, "Precursor, I stay in Agate Star area. There's a space passage in Shadow Ghostly Prison leading to Ancient God Star area. A departed spirit jellyfish stays there. I'm sure that the Dark Shadow Clan, a watchdog of the God Clan, has brought that jellyfish there. They want to destroy Agate Star area. At this moment, my friends are confined to the cold sea where the departed spirit jellyfish stays. They are in an emergency situation. Please, I'm begging you to go there and refine the departed spirit jellyfish. You can take all the products from refining the jellyfish." Agate Star area? I've heard about it. But the space passage from our star area to that area is blocked. I want to go there, but I'm not sure if I can. The beautiful woman looked bitter. I cultivate space power Upanishad. I will try to open that space passage, Shi Yang said hurriedly. If you can open it, I'm sure I can go. I will tell you the current situation of the space passage. You find it and make a slit. I can go through directly. The woman sounded excited. No problem. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.